Live. For real. We're live and alive.
My pseudo swear words.
Oh, yes. Live and alive. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hylian Gamescast, episode 156 by my count. And this is going to be the same setup as last week when we... No, it was the week before, I guess, that when we last did this, wasn't it? Last week we did Mario Kart. That's right. For those wondering, Jesse does have his new computer, because I see you asking in the chat. But it's not everything is all set up here, so I'm running the technical side of things today. So I apologize because I failed at running the technical side of things, which is why we're starting late today. I'm a mess. I'm a mess of a human. So Jesse is on his phone, actually, but you know he's still here with us. So yes, I'm Daniel, aka 𝗵𝗃 I will be one of your hosts today. I hope you're going to have a good time. I'm joined by the man himself, the game over guy, Mr. Jesse. Say hello.
Hi!
This is your channel, and I'm telling you to say hello. No,
it's community ran.
I guess at this point. And we're also joined by the Geek Apprentice, who's wearing a really awesome Zora shirt. I'm like, we were talking about this earlier. We're like, where'd you get this?
Yeah. Hello, y'all.
Ooh, Southern Geek coming out to play today. But Southern Geek
is always ready.
She's always sitting at the ready.
I'm
not
from
always here.
Florida, y'all.
Anyways.
My family's from Bama.
From is that true? I didn't know that. Because you live in Florida.
Yeah, my family is from Alabama.
I had no
They're
idea.
From Birmingham. I mean, we used to all live here. Now I live here. But yeah, my great grandmother's name was Hazel Birmingham, and she was from Birmingham, Alabama.
That is actually kind of hilarious. So,
it doesn't get much more southern than that.
That is great. Awesome.
I love how the goo comes out as soon as it starts.
Yeah, that's the slime. It's the slime. Gotta have the slime.
I'm getting addicted to this stuff, y'all.
I love it. I love it. For those watching us in the live chat right now, please let us know how the audio, how everything looks and sounds, if it's all smooth or if it's choppy or laggy or whatever. I'll do my darndest to fix it as best I can. But we've got a couple good topics to talk about today. The headlining topic, which I made the stream title, about Bandai Namco. Did you guys read about this story since I sent it to you? Saying potential podcast.
I opened it.
You opened it. It's the best I could ask for.
That was the first step.
All right. No, fair
Okay,
enough.
I read
Fair
that
enough.
right.
Well,
See that?
I guess we could probably just jump right into it. So for those wondering, because I know a lot of places are reporting on this Bandai Namco thing. It's not just like a groundless rumor, because we don't really like to talk about rumors that have no basis or anything. By the way, that's not our style, despite what some people think. But this actually comes, or the source of this rumor actually comes from job listings, like legitimate job listings posted by Bandai Namco. So that's about as good a source as you can get. It's right from the company themselves. They posted some job listings hiring for visual artists. And the listings clarify that they are working on a game contracted by Nintendo for a 3D action game. So, you know, there's just a couple jobs to fill for that. But basically, Nintendo has, according to Namco, asked or contracted Namco to work on and it specifically clarifies a remaster/remake, working on an HD remastering of 3D assets for a 3D action game. So, that's all the info we actually have, but it's solid info. There's no, like, rumor, speculation, random Twitter person who says they're an insider or nothing like that. This is actually just... But it is very vague info. We just know it's like the game company is working on a game. So the real question is, what are they working on? What 3D action game are they making? Because we know it's a Nintendo game and it's a remake. And that's all we know. So I guess we don't, just to clarify for everybody who's gonna comment, we don't know. This is the part where we are speculating and just spitballing ideas, or saying things we'd like to see, we are not pretending or claiming to have inside info aside from what I've just already stated. So Jesse, since you're the game over guy, why don't you go first? What do you think they might be working on, or B, would just really like for them to be working on, or either or both, etc.
First, I want to say that goo is mesmerizing.
It really
And
is.
second, I want to say I apologize for the quality of my voice. Third, I want to say that Namco Bandai, or Bandai Namco, has had a lot of co-development with Nintendo for Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, basically everything. I know we are 75% Zelda focused, so if we're talking about something, people usually click on it because they think we're talking about Zelda, but I do not think Nintendo would have something Zelda related for Namco, because they already have Grezzo, they already have Tantalus, they already have weird third parties like the ones that made Cadence of Hyrule, they already have all of these other options to be working on stuff. Link's Awakening was the last Grezzo Zelda game that released. Skyward Sword was the last Tantalus Zelda game. They already presumably have 2 or 3 possible remake or remasters that are lined up that could be released, that I would say that they could have the possibility of people working on, at least. So I don't think this is Zelda related, but we do know Nintendo recently has enjoyed their share of remakes or remasters. So I think it's something like maybe Metroid, maybe Mario, maybe not Mario. There is action in that game, or in those 3D games. Star Fox. They have plenty of action games that could be on the table for this. I would go with Star Fox, because I think anything Zelda related they would already have covered by Grezzo or Tantalus or themselves. And Bandai Namco, we know, has done Mario Kart related stuff, Smash Brothers related stuff. So yeah, I would go with, if it is my opinion, I would go with something closer to Star Fox or Metroid.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, those, I think you're absolutely right about the Zelda thing. I don't think it's a Zelda game that they're working on. I know I've seen people talk about, people going, every time a remake comes up, people bring up the Oracle games, they bring up A Link to the Past, they bring up Ocarina of Time. Everybody's got their Zelda wish list. I do too. No shame in that. But I think you're absolutely right. Nintendo already has companies like you said, Tantalus and Grezzo, that they trust these tasks with. And so I agree. I see it as very unlikely that it's a Zelda game. Yeah. But a geek who's eating a cookie. I just pulled the waiter move and just as soon as you take a bite.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Any thoughts there? What's again, like, and it's something you see realistically and or something you just really wish for.
Y'all, they're clearly remaking Glover.
Glover. No, that would be so out of left field. I would actually love that. I would love that.
I tried to say them with a straight face. It didn't work. No. I honestly don't know enough about Bandai Namco. When I was reading the article, a lot of comments kept saying Kid Icarus was a big one that people kept bringing up. I don't know anything about it, so I don't have much say in this. Now, as far as something I would love to see remade, as much as I totally agree, as much as I would love more Zelda stuff, they have the companies for it, so it doesn't make sense Trying to think what are other. Problem is there aren't many adventure games I played that were Nintendo. I don't think Animal Crossing isn't as much of an adventure as I make it out to be. Yeah, I don't think I have anything that comes to mind because the only old games that come to mind for me are Glover and Silicon Valley. I hated Silicon Valley. It creeped me out. The little alien dog creeped me out.
I never played that actually. No,
I just did not like it personally. But yeah, I don't actually have anything that comes to mind. I just wanted to make a joke about Glover, and I wasn't able to keep a straight face.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I think that would be really out of left field and hilarious, though. I won't lie. But yeah, for sure. That's.
I feel like there wouldn't be a ton of like, oh my gosh, it would be like, oh, okay.
Fair. Yeah.
All right then.
Yeah, all right. Sure. Yeah.
No one asked for it, but okay.
Yeah. Like Natsu in the chat says Kid Icarus, like you mentioned there. I actually don't think that would be a bad choice because I know Kid Icarus Uprising was a 3DS game that I never had or never played, but it was Mr. Sakurai's Masahiro Sakurai's like pet project. That game, sort of in between Smash games, and Bandai Namco has also, like Jesse mentioned, worked on as like assisting development for the latest like 2 Smash Bros games, or 3 I guess, and so they probably have a good working relationship between Sakurai and this company. So I could kind of see Kid Icarus being a good pick. And it's also a game it's one of those games that's like not super popular, but people who played it, like it reviewed really well, it scored really well, people who played it really liked it. So it's one of those games that's like that precipice of like being very well regarded but not popular. And that's kind of good remake material then, you know. And if you think about like 3DS games, they don't upscaled 3DS games can look pretty nice. Even look at like Miitopia looked pretty decent. And that was a 3DS game that Grezzo just upscaled to. They like touched things up, but basically they just bumped it up to Switch, and it looks mighty. It doesn't look bad. It's not like the most amazingly gorgeous game ever, but it doesn't look bad by any means. So yeah, I think Kid Icarus is a good choice. There's a few games that I'd like to see. Like Jesse mentioned Metroid, but I keep coming back to this where it says 3D action game and thinking like, well, like Metroid's more about exploration than it is it has action, but it's more about like exploration. Same, I would say Zelda's more an adventure game, right? So yeah, I keep thinking like Kid Icarus might actually be, or like Star Fox 64 remake, even like just the 3DS version upscaled as well. Like the Star Fox 64 3D. Now they could have new Star Fox 64, new Super Star Fox 64 3D Deluxe.
No, you wouldn't name it something like that. What are you talking about?
That's absolutely something Nintendo would name it. No, there's a lot of good games. I actually really don't have much beyond that, to be honest. But there's a lot of great games I would love.
007.
007. You know, 007 is a tricky one.
That one makes me sick when I used to play it.
Oh, really?
Do first person.
Oh, really? Oh. But 007 is in this tricky copyright area, this copyright zone. For the longest time, especially, there was like crossover where all 3 of the major companies had some share in it. But I think it's less complicated now, but still complicated. Because MGM owns the like IP to like the James Bond films, right? And Rare develops the game, Rare being owned by Microsoft, and it was licensed and published by Nintendo. And MGM for the longest time was owned by Sony, who, you know, is the PlayStation team. So I think they actually sold MGM.
Did not know that.
Yeah. For the longest time they were owned by Sony, but I think Sony sold them in like something like 2017 or something. It was in the last within the last 10 years. So it's a little less complicated, but I still don't think we'll see it anytime too soon. I mean, I think like Microsoft and Nintendo have a decent working relationship with their games. Like I just played through recently Ori and the Blind Forest, which was a Microsoft exclusive, but it's got a really lovely Switch port, which actually runs better than the Xbox version because it's better optimized. That's a true story.
Burn.
No, because like what it is apparently is when the studio first made the game, they were like, okay, it's on Xbox. They didn't like have to optimize it, and then when they were porting it to Switch, they realized that to make it run better, they had to optimize the game properly. But they optimized it so well for the Switch version that it actually runs better, which is, even though it's like technically inferior hardware, and that just shows you the power of good optimization. So
Yup.
yeah, no, I it's just a weird thing that I always find really amusing. So yeah, I think Microsoft and Nintendo would be fine working together on that, but throw Sony into the mix and it gets like infinitely more complicated. So it is what it is.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But yeah, that's actually the only news story I could find for this week. Was there any? Bandai Namco, they're making a game. Game companies making a game.
Bandai Namco.
I can never pronounce it. Bandai Namco, I think it's.
You started to say Bond. I was like, Bandai Namco.
Bandai Nam. I'm yes. We're getting into racially insensitive territory if we stretch that much further, but.
Oh, I was just thinking British.
Oh, okay. I was not
I wasn't
gonna
thinking like that.
I was not gonna go British with it. So, Daryl's Super Smash Bros. Remake. I find that very unlikely because I think Smash is an iterative game where they don't remake any of them. They just make the next Smash game for each console. Daniel's Hot Topics. They're not my Hot Topics. They said, are they making a Legend of Zelda remake? I guess you may have come in after, but basically the first thing we said on this topic is we do not think it's a Zelda game, just because they are probably having Tantalus or Grezzo work on Zelda remakes as opposed to Bandai Namco. And again, I keep thinking that word action game is so specific, you know?
Yeah.
It's so specific. So, and I think Smash Bros. People more put into like the party or fighting game genre. There seems to be kind of two camps of people who say like Smash is a party game, Smash is a fighting game, and I think it's kind of somewhere. It's kind of that Venn diagram of like that sweet spot of both. But yeah, so I would say probably not either of those. Yeah. So yeah. Well, any other final thoughts before we move on? Either of you?
To add on to what you just said, it makes me think of like, do you consider Mario Kart a racing game or a party game? And it's that same thing with Smash Brothers, where it's like fighting game purists like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, whatever, Tekken, don't consider Smash Brothers a pure fighting game, but it's still one of the most popular fighting games, even though fighting game people don't think of it as a pure fighting game. It's more of a party game.
Yeah.
So you are.
Did Jesse just freeze? Okay, it's not just me. He totally froze. Jesse, no! Oh dear. Oh no. He gone. Jesse! Oh dear. I think because also Timid Giant Art Peter in the chat says a remake of Ninja Turtles game for the NES. I think they actually are already making that. The 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃 collection is coming out, which is just a great title, by the way. But I think that's already a thing separate from this. But that genre, that sort of beat 'em ups genre, I think could fit into action game. as well. So there might be some merit to that. I'm gonna DM Jesse here and say like, you froze, you froben. Or I'll just put it in our group chat here. Jesse, you are frozen. We'll see if he hops back in. Well, so in the meantime, I guess we can move on. I did want to hear what he had to say, actually, but
Me too.
oh well. Oh well. That's okay. We'll jump ahead and then we'll step back once he. Oh.
He fixing it then, I guess.
I'm hoping so. Oh, Jesse, my Jesse, where art thou? Where art
So
thou?
Shakespearean.
Yes. Oh dear. He gone. Maybe he'll come back.
I didn't realize how heavy this necklace was.
Ooh.
This is a heavy piece of 𝗙cie.
Oh, I love that. That is the 𝗙𝗃𝐳.
It was a Christmas gift from my mom.
That's actually awesome, though. That's awesome. I also just noticed you have a chocolate frog behind it. Did it actually have chocolate in it? I need to know. I need to know.
It's a pillow.
Oh, it's a pillow. I thought it was like the box. Like it looked it's in the background, so it looked very. Like,
I do
convincing.
have the box somewhere. The chocolate frog, because when I went to the Wizarding World in Universal years back, it's really for the novelty of it because the chocolate frog tasted like the most cheap dollar store chocolate you could find. And I'm like, brah, we paid so much for this. Couldn't you at least make it like Ghirardelli or something?
Yeah, that's disappointing. You'd think that like they have the budget for it. Come on, they have the budget for it.
Right?
Yeah, that's.
I guess
weird.
they figured no people want the box and the little card. They were nice to me too because they were like, "Are you hoping for someone?" The people that were working there, I was like, "Well, naturally, I'm hoping for Rowena Ravenclaw, but I'll be fine with whatever." And I got Godric Gryffindor, and they were like, "Hey, you want us to switch it out?" And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "We have so many stocked in the back. You're wearing like an entire Luna Lovegood outfit. We'll just switch it out for you. It's fine." So they let me give them my Godric Gryffindor and they gave me Rowena Ravenclaw.
Oh, that's so
Thanks.
nice. He
so nice.
back. Jesse,
Yes,
you're back.
I apologize.
You're good. You're good. But I wanted to hear what you were saying before about
Yeah.
fighting game
Basically,
purists
just
and-
people don't like fighting game purists don't consider Smash Bros. A pure fighting game in the same way racing game purists that play Need for Speed or Forza don't consider Mario Kart a pure racing game. And basically, what I would like is a Pikmin 2 remake.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
would that be action? Would you consider Pikmin action or puzzle?
You know what? I would consider Pikmin RTS, real-time strategy, of all things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is it's.
But
and
when it comes,
that's like the funny thing about game genres. You bring up a good point. Like fighting game purists don't consider Smash a fighting game, but I think what's interesting about video games versus other media, like movies, is that we categorize them into genres based on the game mechanics or how we interact with the game, not how we categorize like movie genres, which are like based on their settings and themes and stuff, right? So like, for example, Pokemon Snap and Star Fox are technically both on-rail shooters, but they're totally different games, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so like, Forza and then Mario Kart, they're both mechanically racing games. You know, there's no way to like look at it differently. Like you race in both games. They're both racing games, even though they're like settings and everything are super different. So like I've always argued Smash is a fighting game because you're set on a 2D plane of a stage like that and you have to fight. that's a fighting game. But like game genres are weird like that because yeah, I would say Pikmin is, if anything, all about resource management and time management. It's a real-time strategy game. Which would mean that, like, by those standards, Pikmin is in the same genre of a game like Warcraft or StarCraft or, you know, Civilization or like all these.
I never considered that.
But it's with the exception of my whatever. There's a particular Pikmin game which I dare not utter the title of, with the exception of that 3DS game. All the idea, the main like core mechanics of the Pikmin games are like you build up your, you know, your numbers, your army of little Pikmin, and you have to go and collect resources and you know, find your little whatever your plot MacGuffin objectives are. It's all about time and resource management. That's really the lifeblood of Pikmin is time and resource management, which is just like weird in a Nintendo game. So it's yeah. So
Sims and Animal Crossing are in the same category. They're life.
They're both life sims. Yeah, exactly. I said sims, life sims. So, yeah.
So based off of Namco Bandai's description, action game. When you think of Nintendo action, what do you think of?
Nothing.
I don't see, that's tricky because like action game is so like, yeah, like most Nintendo games are more focused on like adventure, I would say.
Yeah.
Now you really got me scratching my head. Action game is so specific, though. I want
to look up what Google says.
And like action adventure is common. You know, a lot of games are action adventure. They have a little bit of fighting, but it's mostly. That was
not helpful. It lists like every Nintendo game ever.
Yeah, action adventure is all of them, but purely action oriented, I would just think of Metroid and Star Fox are the most action oriented.
I wouldn't even put Metroid in there though. Like Metroid is far more about
Star
exploration.
Tropics.
Maybe
𝗟𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗆 got his wish.
Yeah, Star Tropics is like almost a Zelda game. So it's like really,
which is why he was brought on to Ocarina of Time.
Star Tropics is good though. I would
one of the main ones that comes up is Ring Fit.
Ring Fit. That's one of those games.
Bro, that's turn-based RPG.
You know what? It is.
The chat?
Ring Fit is
an RPG. I
RPG.
cannot see the chat. Yeah, Ring Fit is RPG.
Yeah, Ring Fit's an RPG. It totally is a turn-based RPG, which is wild because then you think of games like
fun.
It's like in the same genre as Final Fantasy then. Final Fantasy and Ring Fit.
Elbow.
And Pokemon.
And Pokemon. Yeah, exactly. exactly.
What is the chat saying?
Someone says Soul Calibur, although I would.
Bandai Namco game.
Soul Calibur's not Nintendo.
The thing is, the listing specifically says. Hang on, I'll pull it back up here. The listing clarifies that it is a remaster / remake, working on HD remastering of 3D assets, and that it is for a 3D action game contracted by Nintendo, and it's
Tournament.
It's specifically contracted by. Well, if it was Pokken, it would be Pokemon Company then that would handle it, not Nintendo, right?
Yeah, it'd be Game
Freak. I think that was Capcom that made that.
Got my brain.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. It has to be Star Fox or like even Zelda is like the most actiony sword fight game, but like that's still action adventure or just adventure. Like you don't think about Zelda games for the combat technical stuff. You think about adventure, like block pushing, and they already have people for that. But what they Namco Bandai, what are the ones working on Metroid Prime 4, right? Before it was turned over?
I think so. Before it got handed back to Retro Studios, which is like kind of like, it was kind of a yikes moment because basically Nintendo said, you're not doing a good enough job on this game, so we're giving it to a different studio. Throwing out everything that you worked on into the trash, which is like, wow.
What about Star Fox Zero? Who is it? Was it Namco Bandai? Or
Platinum.
Namco Bandai?
It was the same company that did like Bayonetta. It's Platinum Games, isn't it?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah, so not Namco.
I still default on those two because you're not gonna tell me Luigi's Mansion was an action game.
It was listed.
That's,
Like everything
you
was
know,
listed.
it's Luigi's Mansion is almost a Metroid game. No, like actually, Luigi's Mansion 3 especially is almost like the structure of it. There's just one large connected, it's a hotel, but it's like one large connected map basically, and you have to gain new abilities. You don't actually gain too many new abilities though, but in some ways but it's really good though. Don't get me wrong, it's a really good game. But yeah,
I think you and I may have one or two people that we could email to ask, but they would still tell us no. I don't know anything about
I
that,
wouldn't say I have even anyone I could email. Yeah, that's all you. That's all you. I have no connections.
I don't have connections.
That's fine. Yeah, but I like legit can't think of much beyond that. Like there's some great NES games I'd love to see redone. Like we mentioned Star Tropics and stuff earlier.
Those aren't 3D
But
though.
that's the thing, is that it part of it says like remaster is like 3D assets, like remastering of 3D assets, which means that it's already a 3D game, a 3D action game.
I have it.
So you have it?
I know it. Yes.
Don't you dare say Hey Pikmin.
No. What was the last rare game for 64?
The Witch?
Was it
Conquer?
Conquer's Bad Fur Day.
Oh.
Oh, was that the last one?
I think the last.
that
Oh yeah, because
Adventure?
then it was Star Fox Adventures, which actually started development on N64 as Dinosaur Planet, but then it became Star Fox Adventures on GameCube. So
Yeah,
I think
That was
Conquer.
Nintendo being like, I don't think anyone would want to play this game. Put not Banjo, but Star Fox characters in it. Which is also what I think they did with Metroid Prime Federation Force. They're like, this seems like a cool idea, but no one's going to want to play it. People really want a Metroid game. Replace all the characters with Metroid. And they're like, yes, sir, Miyamoto.
Yep. Where's the lie? The only oh my gosh, someone said that poor Kirby is getting mangled, and it took me a sec to realize that they were talking about the slime.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Speaking of,
That's why I laughed.
I don't think we've had a full thing since the full game released. How do you guys feel about the new curbs?
Enjoy it.
It's good. I think it's really good. I think it's really good.
You don't have to do much to make Kirby good.
All right, Nintendo, put the quotes on your Game of the Year edition box art. It's good. In quotes.
It's good. That's the quote you can put
With
on the
Comic
box.
Sans.
That's the one. It's good. No, I think Kirby is really fun. It's I've only played like the demo myself, and then I've played through the game start to finish in co-op as player 2. And I will say, and I think I did mention this before, that if
Wait, how's co-op?
co-op is
Is it still the same?
it's
Like
fun.
you press down B and it pops up?
No,
And the
so
guy's like, oh, I'm your side character.
no, see that's my I can't speak words. That's my criticism of the game, is the co-op in previous Kirby games was that you could make any enemy into like
Mhm.
an ally, and then you
Right.
get to make use of all those different abilities, even if you're player 2. And in Forgotten Land, that is not the case, because player 2
It's
is
like,
always
oh, you can play as my hat.
what? The hat?
Like Mario Odyssey, where it's like, oh, you want to play 2-player? You can play as my hat.
Yeah, it's
Is
not
it
not that
Similar
bad.
to where it's... Okay.
I would rank it above Odyssey's 2-player, because I hated that. But no, you play as like a Waddle Dee with a spear, a bandana Waddle Dee, and he's cool and
Yeah.
all, but it gets like when you're player 2, you have the same basic abilities throughout the whole game. Basically, you don't get to try out any of it. And whoever's player 1 is doing all this cool stuff. They're swallowing enemies, using the mouthful mode thing. They're doing all this cool stuff, and you're just like, I have a pokey stick. that's all I got is pokey stick.
It's for the little sibling that cries that they don't get to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
but
say this as the youngest.
it's weird though, because like they had a good system and they threw that out in favor of something that's less fun. You know, like
Yeah, I think that's been like almost every multiplayer Kirby game was like, oh, you want to play? Then I'll let you play as the last person I swallowed.
Yeah, basically, and that worked for me. And even in some, like I booted up Kirby Ultra or Kirby Superstar. It was a Super Nintendo game. I booted it up on Switch Online to like kind of, I was feeling a little nostalgic, and I used to play that game.
Is that the one where it's like 8 games in one?
Yeah, that's the one, and it's so good. It's so fun. So anyways, I booted that up and started. I was playing on that on Switch Online for a little bit the other day, and even if you don't have a second player, you can convert an enemy into an ally, and it's just a CPU until a second player pulls up, a controller or whatever. And it's like, this is fun. This is good. This works, And it's just, I don't know. Like, I feel like that is my one and only criticism with Forgotten Land is like, also the post game is robust, but maybe overstays its welcome a little. But aside from that and the co-op, like I think it's probably the best Kirby game ever, in my opinion. It's just really fun. It's really, really fun.
Better than, what was it, All-Star Ally? What was the one with the heart thing?
The other Switch game was Star Allies. Yeah, I thought Star Allies played it too safe. And I found it lacked anything that was really interesting.
Never played that one.
I think that is my daughter's favorite game of all time.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I thought it was
Kirby
fun.
Like Kirby is easy. That's why I always liked Kirby.
It's fun. Like, don't get me wrong, I played the game start to finish.
The only one I ever really didn't like was Epic Yarn. I hated Epic Yarn.
Ooh, I never did that.
It was because of the music. I hated the music.
This is like in Batman vs Superman, or when it was like Captain America Civil War, where Iron Man was against Captain America. I feel like this is where the heart breaks and the line gets drawn, and then
no!
Like, how dare you disgrace
Kirby
the
Star
Yarn?
Allies is this is the last straw. Oh no, Hylian Gamescast Civil War.
Yeah.
No. Oh no.
No, but I mean,
because I remember you playing that and the Yoshi Yarn game.
Yoshi's Woolly World was fantastic. Really, really great. Same with Crafted World.
I heard that one
was fun. But so okay, to get into
We need
Star
Zelda,
Allies a little bit.
Ocarina of Time HD Epic Yarn.
No. But okay, to actually dig into this, my criticism of Star Allies is like, if you think of like a Kirby game, that's it. But it's like it doesn't do anything like interesting to stand out from the rest. It's like the most generic. It just plays it very safe.
No Kirby.
It feels like they needed to fill a Kirby quota and just like churn out a Kirby game. And it's not bad.
Like,
it's not
one
bad
per system
at all by any means. It is not a bad game. It just doesn't do anything to elevate it from good to great. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a baseline, like, it's good. It's like always running at like 65%. And it never hits like those high notes. But you know what I mean? So it's like at a constant 65%. There's nothing, it's never bad. It's never bad. But it's just never great.
What it came from Kirby.
I know. I'm not, and this game has nothing to do with him. This is after. This is a Switch game that was, long after he passed away. Rest in peace. The legend himself.
Who saved Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? Who was the hero?
The Masa hero.
Kirby?
Sakurai.
No, it was Kirby.
It was Kirby.
Who saved all the
But that has nothing to do with Star Allies.
So how dare you? It's the same Curbs. How dare you?
That has nothing to do with Star Allies, though. And you know what? I think Forgotten Land makes up for it. I think Forgotten Land excels in every way that Star Allies fell short. And again, to reiterate, I don't think it's a bad game. Star Allies is not bad. It's just never great. It's just good, but never great. You know what I mean? Like,
it's a solid 6.9 out of 10.
I could have gotten way worse with it. I could have been like trash. Like there are people who review games, and it's either the best thing ever, it's incredible, it's amazing, or it's a hot dumpster fire. I'm not that guy.
Video game nerd.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm not the person who's gonna say like, it's either incredible or it's garbage. No, it can be in between. That's
realistically, how good could a Kirby game be?
Very good. Forgotten Land proves it can be very good. if that's one thing, that's one thing Forgotten Land proves, is that Kirby can be really good if they try, and they tried here, and they excelled. So
What's the name of the company?
The company that does Kirby?
Yes.
That's HAL.
HAL. Okay.
Yeah, HAL
Yeah.
Laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
So could this action game, to tie it into the last topic, be a Kirby game?
Now to circle back around. He's bringing it home, folks. No, finish up.
Could it be Curbs?
Maybe like
No.
no, maybe not.
Geek's shaking her head.
Kirby's not action though, right? It's like an adventure game. It's like it's like adventure platforming, right?
Yeah.
It was made like the first game. They made it easy for kids, so they could just like fly over the
It
entire
was made
level.
for me.
Yes, it was made for Geek. They're like, in 10 years, Geek's gonna be born. And
Right.
we need this game for her.
And her favorite color is gonna be pink. So
Yeah. Well, he was originally gray.
he was original. I thought
That
he
was a
like,
mistake
originally,
though.
Like, yellow or something. He came out gray. No, he was white. He was originally white.
Yeah, it was one of those shades
In the
of
box art.
colors.
And then they were like pink
Right.
once they could do color.
I think that
Yeah.
Sakurai specifically designed Kirby to be like easy for kids to draw as well. Like he made his design intentionally very simplistic because it's like, okay, like if a kid's gonna draw Kirby, then they can. It's just very easy to draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Pocket Monsters were like, hey, we need an idea for a Pokemon. And they were like, oh, let's just copy Kirby and make it sing.
Oh, and also let's have a dragon, a literal fire-breathing dragon, but not make it dragon type. So it seems like a great
Because
idea.
it's flying. It has wings, you know.
You know. Because that makes sense.
Well, all right. I think we've probably covered this topic as best we can in the last
As
47
best we can, until Daniel makes
we
that phone
can.
call later.
Exactly. I think we covered the best as we can. It's probably not a Zelda game, to reiterate.
That's good.
It's
I didn't
almost-
see that.
I'd
That's
love
a good
it.
news story. I had no idea about that till you mentioned it.
That's what you said. I'm just recapping. I'm just recapping. Probably not a Zelda game. It's some sort of 3D action game of Nintendo's that they've contracted for Bandai Namco to make, and it's probably not a Zelda game. That's the best we got.
For all we know, it's like Bayonetta 1.
Nah,
It could be anything.
I would assume they just have Platinum do it though, right? Because they
I
just
mean,
finished.
they've
Like
had
on
enough
Bayonetta
trouble with
3.
Bayonetta 3. Like, are you really going to go back to them?
It's just remastering. I don't know. But all right, I think it's time we move on. This was a good topic. We actually got more out of it than I expected to be honest.
Yeah.
I thought we'd just throw out a
I
few
mean-
suggestions and move on. So no, it's good.
Anytime Kirby gets mentioned, it's a good day.
Yes, it's a good day when Kirby's on the table, or on the topic docket. So our other topic here, I thought, since it's a bit of a slow news week, to be honest with everyone, and we were kind of struggling to find news stories, so we decided we're gonna have a little fun with a tier list here. So we're gonna argue for the rest of the podcast until it's mailbag time. So as you can see, I have this little in our little box here on the stream. You can see the tier list set up here. We have some Zelda dungeons here from Ocarina of Time. The Zelda dungeons from Ocarina of Time. Not all of them. We're I think omitting a few. In particular, Ice Cavern and Bottom of the Well. Because they're like mini dungeons, right?
Gerudo Training Ground.
Also omitting that because that's like an optional side dungeon, I would say. So we just have the 9 mandatory main dungeons. So inside Deku Tree, Dodongo's Cavern, Jabba Jabba's Belly, Forest Temple, Fire Temple, Water Temple, Shadow Temple, Spirit Temple, and Yanon's Castle. So those are the ones
Spirit
we're going to
Temple
be...
is one temple,
Sorry?
not separating child and adult for Spirit.
For Spirit, I'd say it's one temple. One temple.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes, and we're gonna hash this out and try and sort these, and we have to come to a consensus. That's just gonna be the tricky part.
Okay.
So
Oh.
I will start by saying whatever Daniel says is wrong.
Oh my
How
god.
could you? How dare you? How dare you?
Alright.
It did just hit me. Oh, this is a tier list. I can put
Mhm.
more than one in the same category because I had numbered them off from like 1 to 9, 1 being my favorite, 9 being my least favorite. I'm like, oh, I feel bad putting this down there. And I'm like, oh wait, no, they can be multiple categories. Okay.
That's yeah, no. So it's not like
That
a
is also what I did.
yeah, it's not like a 1 through 9 ranking. We're just tier
Yeah.
listing them,
That's
and
easier.
so that might make things a little bit easier. So, I figure we'll just start at the
Okay.
beginning and go in like chronological or like the standard order, starting with inside the Deku tree here. So, how do we feel about this? We got S is the best tier, S, and then A, B, C, D.
Question.
Yes, answer.
Are we because the first dungeons in each Zelda game is developed as an introduction dungeon. So are we ranking it as a dungeon or an introduction dungeon? Because as an introduction dungeon, it is phenomenal. As a are we comparing it to how are we doing this?
Well, that's the
Give me
thing
the
is like
rules.
you have to take I think that's part of the thing to take into consideration is like this is the
Exactly.
introduction dungeon. Does it achieve what it's setting out to do? Which I would say yes, it does, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Like, what does it mean for that dungeon and stuff? But at the same time, is it still fun? Is it engaging? You know, so I think
Mhm.
it's something we kind of just have to weigh out but take everything into consideration here, even if it's music.
Is
even if
Rinrin in the
it's-
chat?
Sorry, is
I
who?
haven't
Is
seen
Rinrin
her.
in the chat?
I haven't seen her in the chat actually.
What about Tetra?
Also haven't.
Haven't seen her either.
Maybe, I forgot to post it in my Discord that we're live, so maybe that's why. Maybe
Oh.
that's why they're
I
like.
was gonna say I am on the side with Rinrin on what she
Oh.
says about this too.
Oh, really? There's just a little bit of bias there, I see. Here, I'm gonna post it real quick. Forgot to post. We are live.
No, even for a normal dungeon, I would say Deku Tree is tier 2's the second highest. How are we?
So it's
I'm on my phone.
Maybe.
it's like A B C D,
Oh.
but S is the best. So S A B C D. So D low is like the worst. I didn't put an F there because I don't
Tier A.
think any of these dungeons are an F. Just to get that out there.
I'm not
Well-
sure any of these dungeons are D.
Fair enough.
Tier A is what I go with.
Tier A. So it's like second. I would actually even put it at B because it's rather
I was
rudimentary.
gonna say A or B.
So we're kind of in the fence here. It's like
Mhm.
we're between A and B here.
Hylian Gamecast Civil
Now-
War Part 2.
Oh no. Again, I don't think it's bad. Like B, there's no shame in a B.
Mm-mm.
But I do find that, and maybe this is just because I've played the game so many times. I do find that when I'm going through it, I'm kind of on autopilot. You know, I just kind of like power through it.
Yeah.
Whereas later dungeons are more engaging for me and actually like take my brain power to work through. I do think it's a
Do you
great
feel it's
introductory
better than the
dungeon, though.
Master Quest version?
We're not. I don't think we're touching Master Quest for this. That wasn't my plan.
I've never
know.
played Master Quest.
There you go.
I can't
So
help there
there you
anymore.
go. Yeah. So not taking Master Quest into consideration at all. You know what though? Like, you're kind of right. Like it is really
Such a
good.
introduction though.
It is a really good intro dungeon.
Mhm.
Because it does
the
like.
atmosphere is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Are
Yeah,
we
it's got
taking
that.
Navi into consideration?
You know what?
No.
Whatever Navi does is not the dungeon's fault. So I'm gonna say.
Agreed.
So she's like,
not-
hey, you can open this door by pressing A.
Right. That's not the dungeon's fault. But no, you know what?
Okay.
I'm thinking about it. I might bump it to A just because it's not the most engaging, but you're right that it is a really good introductory dungeon because it teaches you
Oh,
very effectively.
Not
You
supposed to be
also-
hard.
Hmm.
you also mentioned before we began this includes music and boss fights.
Yeah, music and
very
boss
good.
fights. So music is I would say lackluster, but it is effective in
It fits.
and it's like ambience, like it's a good fit. I just don't think it's like a catchy song that I like can like hum, you know. But it's like it's ambience basically, right?
It's no 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 theme.
No.
Da, 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 da.
No.
Da.
Okay, so are we going?
What do we think of the boss? Because the boss, like, you want to know how much anxiety I have with bosses? Is the first time I finally decided to defeat. I almost called her Gamora. That's not her name. Goma. On my own. I was probably like 13 or 7. I was like, I'm gonna do this by myself. And it was on the N64. I don't do bugs, especially not spiders and palmetto bugs. We all know my thing with palmetto bugs. Anyway, I was freaked out so much. You know how everything takes 3 rounds? I defeated Goma in 2 rounds because I was spamming so hard. And I was sweating that I dropped my controller.
And this is your
That's
first time?
Yeah.
You know what? I will say
I don't like doing bosses.
the first time I defeated Goma is like one of those. It's like core memory for me as a gamer because like I was pretty young when this game came out. I was born in 1993. This game came out in 98. We actually got it in 99 though. We were late to the party. It's okay. But
3 months.
when I was playing it, like it actually took me weeks to get through there. I was really young. I wasn't that great at games, okay? And but I've always been very persistent, and like I'd seen my older siblings play through it and get past it, whatever, and I was so determined to like do it, but I kept dying in that Goma fight over and over again. And when I finally beat Goma and got out of that dungeon and finished it, it was like this moment of triumph for me that I will never forget. That one stuck with me. And yeah, I mean, like that was a big deal. Like that was like a formative moment for me. Like I was like, you know, you can see when I play games the level of persistence that I have now probably stems from that exact moment when I finally got through that. So, you know, just maybe that's the one. So
I'm willing to go with A tier, but I'd be fine with B tier too.
Okay, so I you know, I'm on the fence about it too. Since Jesse says A, we'll just put it there because I would say A or B is fine. It does.
I'm going to say because it does a big thing in Zelda dungeons is the what's it called? The retreading, like where you go back to areas you've already visited. It does a good job of if you're like halfway through with the dungeon, then like the very first thing you see in the dungeon is like that giant spider web in the covering up the hole. And like to me that's a clear line of okay, you're halfway done with it.
Yeah, and you know what? It does a good job of like it's very rudimentary in a lot of ways, but it does a good job of just like establishing ideas that the game builds upon later. So like the idea of you have a central a big central room that the whole dungeon branches off from there. That's sort of, not to say it wasn't in previous games, but most of the dungeons in 2D Zelda games didn't adhere to like a central room concept. Not like the 3D games do. So yeah, I mean it's it also I think is like kind of weirdly intuitive with the spiderweb thing. Like there's no tutorial saying that you can break the spiderweb by jumping super high or from a super high point. It's just like something we kind of just like figure out to do based on the dungeon's layout itself, right? Yeah, it's funny. Right. I started at B, and the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm like A tier. Yeah, A tier's good.
I also want to say it teaches you the importance of a roll jump to get the gold Skulltula once you fall below the spider nest, because you try to jump as much as you want or backflip, whatever, you can't get it. You have to like roll jump to get the gold Skulltula at the bottom of the.
Ooh, there was a bit of sound there. So okay, so 8. I think we're kind of in agreement. We'll just leave it in A tier then.
Yeah.
I think again, not the most complicated dungeon, but it excels in what it's what it's set out to do, which is to be a really intuitive starter dungeon to teach new players. So next is
before we move to the second one, Daniel.
Okay.
If we wanted to watch a video series on Ocarina of Time dungeons and philosophy, where could we go to check that out?
I do this. That wasn't my intention behind this topic, but I do have a full dungeon breakdown series on my channel, 𝗵𝗲𝗃 𝗚𝗺𝗃𝗀𝗃, where I go. I have
It's a good series.
It is, or you know what? I'm almost at the end of Twilight Princess here. I'm like I'm like elbow deep in editing this last Twilight Princess video, and I'm almost a little emotional about it. So it's good. It's a great game. But yeah, I like to break down them dungeons and all that good stuff. So, by the way, guys, is the tier list for those watching? Is the tier list too small? Should I take it out of the box and biggin it up a little bit, or you think it's all
out of
probably
box?
Fine. It's probably fine. People get the gist. Let's see. Next, 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏's Cavern.
B or C.
B or C. Okay. What do you think, Jessie?
I like it, but boss is very easy.
Boss is pretty easy, especially if you have the Hylian shield and you can just duck, like you crouch and he will roll over you and you won't take damage.
You can also hide in the corners of the little lava pit.
That's true. Yeah, if you're right in the corner, you're totally right.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to say B.
B?
I thought about it and I was like, well, it's very symmetrically designed.
Yeah.
So then I wanted to say A. But then I was like, I remember the original 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏's Cavern. Now I want to say C.
The original where it's like huge, like the beta version that was enormous. Yeah, that was something else.
Where you are adult Link going through the dungeon.
Yeah, that was too big.
No.
Too big. You know what's cool about that?
Because I would love to know what that is, I would say C. But based on what it is and what we received, I'll stick with B.
Yeah, I think B is a
but
fair.
You
like,
were saying
it's not a bad dungeon by any means. I think it builds upon what Inside the Deku Tree kind of sets out to do, and kind of builds upon that, expands upon it. But I mean, yeah, like it's like Kirby Star Allies. It's good, but never great. Like, no, it's you know,
and there's nothing that tells you that you need to go back when you're an adult to get.
That's true. Oh, you're so right. That one gold 𝗙𝗏𝗃𝗏. You know what? Inside the Deku Tree is also guilty of this. These two are the only dungeons you have to come back to later to get a single gold 𝗙𝗏𝗃𝗏, and it's really annoying. I would even, yeah, I hate that. I want to finish a dungeon in one go. I don't want to come back later for a secret. You're both guilty.
Let me introduce you to Skyward Sword then.
Okay, so you have found my my pressure point there. No, so I think B is fair. I think it's a good dungeon. It's not bad by any means, but it's not amazing either. So I think
I will say the first big puzzle you have to solve, where you're in the room after you run through the little worms that pop up out of the ground, which don't make any sense.
The worm? No, those are baby 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏s. They're little baby 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏s.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then don't they pop up in the Gerudo port or the Gerudo Desert?
No,
those are
weird
levers.
Death succulents.
Yeah. Cacti of death. They're two separate enemies.
The first thing that came to my head, death succulent.
I just kind of took those two things and combined them into one in my head.
You know, they're like visually they pop out of the ground. They have like similar color schemes, so I can see how, actually, honestly.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the room where you have
that one.
Dead succulent,
bomb, and then it like drops down the staircase.
That's a fun part. It's a cool cutscene.
That did take my older brother and I a few hours. I assume a few hours. To me, it felt like a few hours to figure out. So that was an interesting puzzle. Sadly, it's the only time that type of puzzle happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, a solid B.
A solid B is fair. I think that's fair. And I would say that puzzle in particular, I feel like the only reason that puzzle's in there is because they were like trying to show you that the game's 3D. Like that was the whole reason they did. Like, look it's 3D. Look at these stairs. Yeah, that was the whole reason. That was the whole reason. So okay, so a solid B. I think that's fair. It's a good dungeon. but it's not the most amazing this one has to offer. Okay, so next is Inside 𝗙𝗵𝗲 𝗵𝗲 I want to put this one in C, honestly, for a couple of reasons. It's gross. It's nasty. The walls pulsate. It gives me like goosebumps. And you have to carry Princess Ruto around, and she is obnoxious
even though
and
she's
annoying.
on my shirt.
Yeah, she's so annoying. I hate it. I don't hate it.
And
but
the Master Quest version has cow tumors.
I don't like that. I don't like that. There were also the gross tentacle things that hang down in the rooms. There's the tentacle things that you have to throw the boomerang at. They gross me. Like, there's so many things with this dungeon that just gross me out. I'm a very squeamish person.
The only reason I don't say D is because I'm like, what their concept, they executed it very well. The music, I hate it. That's good.
Yeah, no, the music
should.
The music literally sounds like his guts churning. Like the beat of the song is like his heartbeat. There's indigestion sounds. It's nasty. But you're so right. It does effectively do what it was trying to do, for sure. It's just what it was trying to do is nasty.
I don't want to play it.
I think this was the first dungeon that took my brother and I, we stopped for like 3 months playing the game because we couldn't figure it out. And then I did. We got to the part where after you rescue Ruto, the other princess, there's the part that like raises you up to the bridge. Like it's the platform that raises up and down.
Yeah.
We got confused on that because we were like, this just takes us back to where we were before. What's the purpose of this?
Now, Charles in the chat mentions that he liked using Ruto as a weapon. That's probably the most, like, the biggest redeeming factor of the dungeon, I would say.
Yeah.
I also like to do that. Just throw her at enemies. And
the little sound she made.
Yeah. And she'll kill most enemies.
Yes, I agree.
So we go and see.
I think C.
We're all in agreement on all of these.
So far we are. I thought we would disagree more, but we're all on the same page. I would say C. It is not
these are
bad.
all dungeons I've played many times. As we get further down the list, there's less time I've played it, and I'll be like, I don't remember it that well. I didn't like.
Oh, well, yeah. I guess we'll get there.
No, I imagine there'll be at least one we claw each other's eyes out.
No,
I'm ready for the next one.
But inside 𝗙𝗵𝗲 𝗵𝗲, it's gross. I don't think it's a bad dungeon. I think in terms of just like its overall layout and design and its interconnectivity, it does all that stuff really well. It's so gross, and Ruto's annoying, and so like it's like the
you're talking
bad
about me.
Taste of escort mission, whereas like Wind Waker's escort missions with like medley is great, right? But Ruto just no thanks. So okay,
Great.
Forest Temple S tier. S tier.
Yes.
There is no arguing there. It is S.
It is the best dungeon in the game. It is so good. It's so good.
Music. So freaking good.
Yes.
I literally
even when you first go into it,
to put it as my #1 in something. Something music. Oh, guess what #1 is gonna be?
Yeah, it's Forest Temple. The music's so
like
good.
This,
it is the
like at this point, it's not even dramatic when I put it in. Like the screen goes black and it's silent, and at this point, everyone's going, "Wait, there it is."
Wait for it. No,
and
but
it
has its reputation, but I think it's well deserved. It's well earned. I think it
good.
is an appropriate leap up in difficulty from the Child Link dungeons, because it's this leap to now you're Adult Link, and just like the atmosphere.
Introduction.
The atmosphere is so good. It's like it's dark, but not like Bottom of the Well dark. It's dark in its own way, and it's just like super mysterious and ambient, and just I think it's also, as far as complexity goes, it's that perfect sweet spot. Like, it's not too overly complicated, but it's also not like so simple that you can just autopilot through it. Like, even still, when I play through it, I have to actually like think about, where am I going? Did I get enough keys before I can go this way? That kind of thing. So it's just that
good boss.
Phantom Ganon, where you get to play Dead Man's Volley. I love Dead Man's Volley. It's a trope I will never.
I learned how to dodge his lightning strikes though.
Yeah. Yeah, if you stand on one
standing
of
by the poles.
yeah, if you stand on like one of the corners, you can just avoid all his attacks. It's great. It's great. S tier. S tier.
I will say it is very reminiscent of Super Mario 64. The jumping through the paintings. And I will also say it was so great they brought a lot of the overarching themes back for Arbiter's Ground in Twilight Princess, where you have to hunt the pose and do the puzzles.
You're so right. You're so right. Yeah.
And Phantom Ganon made many returns.
It's just so perfect.
It is. I think it's. I like forest themed dungeons. I think those are always, or they're often like some of my favorites. I just find the vibe of it. But I really like that, and this is something I criticized the Fire Sanctuary and Skyward Sword for. But something I really appreciate about Ocarina of Time is that like you have technically like 2 or 3 sets of dungeons that are like 2 repeats of the same themes. You have like 2 forest themed dungeons, 2 fire themed dungeons, 2 water themed dungeons, but there's no, like, they're so distinct from each other. There's no mixing them up. You're not going to get inside the Deku Tree and the Forest Temple mixed up because they're so different from each other, even though they're both forest themed dungeons. So yeah,
and even the dungeon items are similar, the bow and arrow and the slingshot.
You're right.
But they still incorporate them in puzzles completely different ways.
Well, I mean, there's like the eye switch here and there, but aside from that, yeah, you're right. They totally are similar items. Yeah. Great dungeon. Great. I'm glad we're in agreement there. So, I was ready to fight either of you if you didn't say S tier.
The twisty hallway.
For music alone.
Sorry, Jesse.
The twisty hallway.
Twisted hallway is so cool, and we never see anything like that again. Until
Majora's Mask.
Until
like they literally use it for the intro of Majora's Mask.
Yeah, but like just one cutscene. It's never like a gameplay mechanic in Majora's Mask.
Right.
You know?
Oh, that's your introduction to Wall Masters too.
Oh yeah.
Like
Wall Masters.
They designed the rooms. They designed the rooms so well that you have one original puzzle on its own, and then you go back to the same room, but now it's flipped on its side, and it's a completely different puzzle that you didn't even notice before.
I love it.
I love it. It's great. Great. Perfect dungeon. 10 out of 10. S tier. Would play through it again. Now, Fire Temple. I'm actually not sure where to put Fire Temple, to be honest.
S tier.
Really? I wouldn't put it that high. I don't think it stacks up with Forest Temple.
I was gonna say B.
B? You know, I might put it in B as well, because as far as like Fire Temple, I always view as like a gauntlet dungeon. You're not there's not all that much like of a puzzle nature to it. It's just like room after room of challenges. It's like you're doing combat. Okay, now you're going through an obstacle course. Now you're running away from a boulder. Now you're navigating this flames that are popping up around you. Now you're fighting the fire dancer guy. Now you're using a hammer and you've got a timer and you got to run up to this thing. But there's never like this sort of sense that like the Forest Temple has, where it's like, okay, where do I have to go next? How many keys do I need to get? Like that navigational challenge isn't really there for Fire Temple. It's just like action. You know what I mean? And so for me, it's this
Fire Temple. Fire Temple introduced a feature so great, they were almost ready to build every single one of Twilight Princess's dungeon after it.
I don't know what idea is that.
When you're in the maze with the boulder following you around, and it goes from 3D to top-down 2D. And the camera angle stays like it turns your 3D game into a 2D, which is great for the people that came off of A Link to the Past playing Ocarina of Time, because they get that top-down view. But Twilight Princess originally had all of its dungeons to where it would be that top-down view, and then when you got into a combat situation, it would go back to behind-the-back 3D. So I want to say it's an S tier.
They didn't. Like I think the game would have suffered if they had stuck with that concept. Absolutely. Also, we have a super chat from Jesse Wood Thank you, Jessie.
Yeah.
They say Fire Temple is def a B. Water Temple is S tier. I almost agree with you there, but I think B for Fire Temple is I know.
I do too. Like, I feel bad saying it because I love the original uncensored music, and I even like the censored version of the music. There's great things about it, but it never stood out to me. It was always like, this is the volcano dungeon. Okay, moving on. Just after an introduction like Forest Temple, it's like, oh, there's nothing bad about it. There's nothing that I'm going to, I hate this dungeon. But it's not, it never stood out to me. But it is good. But,
Totally.
I don't think it's better than Dodongo. I feel bad that both the fire dungeons are...
just the 2 fire dungeons in there chilling in B tier.
So how do you feel about getting... So there's the puzzle where you have to run across the tiny little platform to get the Megaton hammer. But there's a secondary, harder puzzle in the same style to get a piece of heart, I believe.
But I wouldn't call those puzzles even, really. They're more just like, you have a timer and you have to run.
It's like the first good time to use the Scarecrow.
That bothers me too, actually. Because on a normal playthrough, there's not really any indication to go out of your way to get the Scarecrow song. So if you already know the Scarecrow song, which you probably only would if either you've been exploring a ton or you've played the game before, if you already know the Scarecrow song, then sure, the Scarecrow song being in the dungeon will work. But like your average person probably wouldn't have gotten it yet, which means that means there's a gold Skulltula they can't get yet unless they backtrack for it, and puzzles that are harder without it. So I would say I would dock it points for having or for making use of Scarecrow song, because I think that most people wouldn't have thought to find it, or like even the last time I played Ocarina of Time, I forgot to get the Scarecrow song first. I was recording footage for my dungeon design video. I had to leave the dungeon, get the Scarecrow song, and then go back in.
Oh.
And
what is the name of the channel that we find these dungeon design videos on?
I'm sorry?
What is the name of the channel that we can find these dungeon design videos
that's
on?
on 𝗵𝗃 I swear this is not just a giant promotion for these videos. I just love talking about dungeons. But yeah, I mean, you can always find that in the video description, my channel.
Okay, I'll be back in 1 moment.
All right. So
apologize.
while
You can go
Jesse's
into the
away,
Warp Temple without me if you need to. I'll be back in 20 seconds.
Sure. While Jesse's away, we'll just leave Fire Temple in the B tier.
Yeah. I will also say I wasn't a huge fan of the boss, mini boss, or dungeon item. They're fine.
They're fine. No, I agree. They're fine, but they're not like the Fire Dancer. He's pretty forgettable. You fight him twice, but even then, he's like not as memorable as, you know.
As a dancer, I was insulted by that mini boss.
Yeah. The Megaton hammer has pretty limited use. It's like a fine item, but it just feels like a holdover from A Link to the Past. Like they were bringing A Link to the Past items over, and they brought the hammer, and then they kind of had to figure out what to use it for. And then after that dungeon, it kind of like they forget about it, you know. It gets used a couple times in like Ganon's castle, and I think once in like the Spirit Temple, maybe, if I'm remembering correctly. And then like you break rocks outside. I don't know. It's just like hammer.
Not much use.
Hammer. I mean, he's good in the final boss if you don't have Big Goron sword. But then if you have the Big Goron sword, it's better. So no point in using the hammer. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Volvagia as the boss is cool. I like dragons, but not the coolest. Not Phantom Ganon cool. So.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Here's the doozy one. This is going to be, I think, the polarizing one. Ooh. Water Temple. I want to put it, my gut is A. It's not S tier. It's not Forest Temple. But I would put it in A tier. It's just my controversial Zelda opinion.
I think I would too, because I love the music. I don't like the boss, but I like the music. I think the design is really good. Did I struggle with it? Yes. Does that really mean anything, considering I've always struggled with all video games ever and mainly play for nostalgia and puzzles and music and story, no, that doesn't matter. But I feel like I've watched enough people play it, played it enough myself, and seen enough justifying it that I'm like, no, that is an A-level design.
That's the thing is...
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think most people's criticism of the Water Temple, they're like, it's too hard. And I would say, like, no.
The boots are annoying, but...
There's annoying things about it, but, like, it's I feel like evolves like what Forest Temple established, where you have that sort of... you know, the previous, you got this great central room, you got the dungeons that build off of that, you've got this gimmick of manipulating the central room to fit into your navigation. We've got Dark Link, fantastic, best mid boss in the game, but in my opinion, of course, best mid boss in the game, Dark Link.
Oh yeah.
You got the upgraded hookshot, like the long shot. I love the hookshot. I love the hookshot, and they'll give you hookshot 2.0. So good. Yeah, I feel like just because it's hard doesn't mean it's bad. And a lot of people get hung up on that, like, oh, it's too hard. But I don't like. I'm always up for a challenge, honestly. So yeah, I think it's an A-tier dungeon, even though there's a few keys that are a little sticky for some people to remember to get. I'm also a big proponent
like
of
my brother somehow got soft lock.
Oh yeah, that can be tricky, but I
think it was
always
just our version.
Someone that says, like, if you're stuck on a dungeon, use the map. Just use the map. They give you a map and compass, and so many times I see people playing Zelda games and they never look at the freaking map, and then they don't know where to go. And I'm like, if you look at the map, you can see where the treasure chests are. You can see where you need to find the keys. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like the rest of the dungeon makes up for the two things I don't like, which is the boot thing and the final boss. Also, I really need to get more water, so I'll be right back.
Oh yeah, no worries. While Geek is BRBing, Jesse, Water Temple.
Yes, 100% S tier.
S? I said A tier.
Well, I'm
like
said S.
I thought I was the biggest Water Temple stan around, but
no, people that say it's too hard, like,
right.
Okay, so that's the thing. Like, hardest dungeon, going by popularity, what's known for being the hardest dungeon. Like, I know Dark Souls and stuff has harder dungeons, technically, but among most gamers, the hardest dungeon would, like, the Water Temple comes to mind. But I like to think, like, how many times have you heard Miyamoto in interviews say that he makes games, like, basically for kids? Like, if they're too hard,
I know
like,
he says
the
it.
one
I've
movie
just
where he
never
talks
heard
about if they're too hard,
right.
Like, he has kids as part of the game testers for his games. So if something is too hard, he will make it easier so that the kid playing it has an easier time. So when people are like, oh, the Water Temple is way too hard, I'm like, well, it was literally designed to be able to be enjoyed by little kids. So if you're an adult saying it's too hard, then you're saying something that's designed for kids to be able to get through is too hard. That's what always comes to my mind.
Just because something's designed
and
for kids
I understand
doesn't necessarily, like, the Minions movie
for, like,
isn't
other
exactly
Zeldas.
peak cinema, right? It's designed for kids, though, so it doesn't mean Kirby Star Allies, for example.
Have you ever seen M. Night Shyamalan movie?
Which movie?
M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, I've seen some M. Night Shyamalan movies. But
of the Avatar movie?
Oh, I don't want to talk about that. That's just so bad. I did see that movie. It's an hour and 20 minutes, but it feels like 4 hours because it's so freaking boring.
It does, doesn't it?
It does. It's
okay, let's put this entire season into, like, one movie.
It's so
not
yeah.
any of it right.
Just to address in the chat, I've been called out here, but I think rightfully, Joseph says, if you think the hammer is a bad item, wouldn't the long shot be worst? It's an item you already have, but just longer. No new mechanic or way to be innovative with that. You're right.
Here's this.
You're right. The long shot is not innovative. I just think I like that the dungeon makes a lot of use of the hook shot because it's an item I like using a lot. And I almost feel like the hook shot was supposed to be the dungeon item, and then they changed some stuff around, and then they were like, okay, well, we'll give you the hook shot earlier and make this one longer now with the long shot. So I don't know. Like Twilight Princess does it better with double claw shots, obviously. But that's a better way to upgrade an item instead of just increasing the range. You increase its versatility. But I don't know. I still stand by. And I think part of that is why it's not S for me as well. That's in part the dungeon item's not superb. No, you don't need to be sorry, of course, Joseph. Don't no need to be. Call me out, guys. If I'm weird or wrong, call me out. But yeah, no, I think that like it does so many things well, and people harp on it, and I'll defend it. I'll say it's not a bad dungeon. I don't know why people harp on it. Well, I do know why people harp on it. I don't agree with them harping on it, but it doesn't hit that same like perfection sweet spot that Forest Temple does for me. Like I don't view it as like the perfect dungeon. I just think it's a really, really good one. Good enough to be A tier. But like it's not one that I'm always like, oh my gosh, I'm looking forward to this dungeon so much when I play this game because I really want to play this. This is like the best dungeon ever. That's how I feel with Forest Temple. So that's me.
Okay, Daniel.
Jesse.
Let me tell you guys why you're wrong.
Okay. I'm ready. I'm ready for the lesson.
No, okay. I agree that there is some things that could be better. I feel like once upon a time I did have an issue with messing up the order of the keys and being soft blocked or whatever. But the biggest issue is a real life issue I had with the Water Temple. Do you guys? It may have been the first time you were introduced to the word as well. Vortex.
Oh. I know this story, but please tell it anyways for the lovely people watching. But it's a good story.
So there are the tiny whirlpools, and after you get the long shot, or maybe it's before. I believe it's after you get the long shot. There's the vortexes. You have to like go through the little stream and not get sucked in and like shoot to different places to get there, where there are iron boots and stuff. So I used that word vortex because I was playing through that dungeon at this specific time. I was in 5th grade, and I used it as a synonym for the word portal. And my teacher at the time was like, you're not allowed to just make up words. And I'm like, 1, I didn't make it up, and 2, you can make up words because half of William Shakespeare's words, half of William Shakespeare's words are like made up that he used for the first time. So it's like on both counts you are wrong, but I still had a failing grade for that because
that's unfair.
My use of vortex.
That's like so.
But I don't blame the Water Temple for that. I just blame my ignorant teacher.
No, your teacher sucks.
That hard to be like, I don't think that's a word. Let me double check. Goes to dictionary. Oops.
Yeah. But I think it does a great job on a lot of like the hardest part of that dungeon to me is the right timing on the part where you're having to long shot up to the next platform when the platforms are like cascading down the
there's
waterfall.
Like the waterfall and the platforms are all going down. You have to like keep hook shotting up to the next one. Yeah, you have to be fast.
I always get behind.
You have to be fast on that one. I think
the only thing.
No, sorry. Finish before I ramble. Sorry, I'm
I was going to say the only thing I would fault it on is, and this isn't really a fault. It's just something that maybe they had in mind for the game when it was like Zelda 64 or before it became the cartridge-only Ocarina of Time that we know of today. There's like a lot of the dragon statues in the temple, which makes sense if you play Skyward Sword, but I don't think they were thinking of Skyward Sword when they were making Ocarina of Time. So it's like, did they have a different boss in mind where it was a dragon, like a water dragon? Because there's all the water dragon statues you have to hookshot to, and it's a big letdown when you get to the boss, and it's like, oh, it's water. Like, it's not a water dragon, it's just water.
It's condensed water.
The soft locking thing was never an issue for, like, I've never soft locked in that dungeon, and I only like heard about it afterwards, like on the internet from other people saying that they had, which I was always like, what, really? Like, I never had that problem here, you know? So, like, but for me, that kind of also knocks it from S down to A, because I feel like you should never have an issue where you can soft lock in a dungeon like that. Especially because, like, when I play through that game, basically anytime I leave the pause menu, I press B and I end up saving. So, like, if you soft lock, you're so screwed. You have to start the game over, at least if you do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I just feel like that also kind of knocks it down again. The dungeon's still great, but knocks it down to A. And also, 𝗵𝗃, the boss, is, I think, cool, but not the coolest. Like, I love the design and, like, the idea of the boss, because it's so unique. Like, there's nothing else like it in the series, basically. And I love that. But then I just feel like when I'm actually fighting it, like, yeah, it's just, like, good. It's not great. So, yeah. Jesse, you had a thought there?
Yes, sir. Am I allowed to change my answer from S to A?
Of course.
Because
We already made it A anyway.
I've just had it sitting in A. Hoping to talk you down.
After effects of the dungeon. What happens when you beat the Forest Temple?
When you beat the Forest Temple, oh, I know where you're going with this. Yeah, so because the forest, Deku Tree Sprout grows, the forest has
bosses,
no monsters.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a new Deku Tree being born. The Kokiri Forest is rid of all of the curse that was on it. Death Mountain gets cleared up when you beat the Fire Temple. There's no, like, giant swell above it, all that stuff. The Gorons are back in Goron City. And then you get to Zora's Domain. It's frozen. You're like, okay, Water Temple. It's frozen because curse on Water Temple, whatever. You go there.
You gotta fix it.
Nope. Like, maybe they had to do something with the ice cavern before it was turned into, or the ice temple before it was turned into the ice cavern. But still, like, yeah, Lake Hylia is unflooded, but even that doesn't make any sense because all that water is provided by Zora's Domain, which is what the game tells us. But then Lake Hylia refills, but Zora's Domain's still frozen, which doesn't make sense to what the game literally tells us. So for that, the after effects, the lasting impact of the dungeon, I will say is an A tier. Otherwise, it would be an S tier.
You know, like, I hadn't considered that because that's, like, kind of stuff outside the dungeon. But no, you're right. Like, that, like, Zora's Domain never gets unfrozen, which is, again, a thing they corrected in, like, Twilight Princess. But without even having to do the dungeon, they just let you drop a big rock in there. But yeah, no, that's totally a weird thing in the game. Like, I actually would even say that, like, Ice Cavern should, like, beating Ice Cavern should unthaw it, you know, more than Water Temple. Like, it makes no sense to me that it's frozen because of the Water Temple that's on the other side of Hyrule when the Ice Cavern's right there. Like, that always felt weird, like, it made no sense. And then, like, you beat the Water Temple and Lake Hylia fills back up. That makes sense to me. It's like, okay, it's connected. You know, there's a water monster. He's drank it all, I guess. I don't know. But he
condensed the water.
He condensed it. Yes, the water's really thick when you walk through it, like gravy.
Ew.
That sounds nasty. But yeah, no, it's yeah. It is weird. It's weird. I feel like that's always been kind of a disconnect for me. But okay, so we're in agreement. A tier. It's great. It's a good dungeon. It's not perfection like a Forest Temple, but it's good. So A tier. Next is people will dispute this dungeon order. Some people say Shadow and some people say Spirit. I'm just gonna say Shadow Temple next because that's always how I've done it. So Shadow Temple, I would put in the B tier with the Fire Dungeons myself because I feel like it feels like a step down in terms of, like, its complexity and difficulty coming off of, like, the Forest and Water Temple. And but it's like it's very much a gauntlet dungeon like Fire Temple. It's very much like a straight line. It's rigidly linear from one end to the other, but where it lacks in complexity, it does make up for in its overall, like, atmosphere. Its boss fight and mid boss are both super memorable. So and again, it's like it's overall, its music has got that harpsichord thing that always literally sends tingles down my spine, and it's got this really dark, terrifying ambience. I think it's really good, but it never hits those great notes for me, like some of the others. So I say B. What do you guys think? Sway me, or agree with me.
I was torn between A and B. The only reason I was leaning A, or would lean A, would be because of how good the atmosphere is presented. But I do recall even my first time actually playing through it on my own years and years ago was because naturally the thing kind of scarred me. I didn't want to play it. But I noticed, I was like, this was a fast dungeon, and I got through it pretty quick, which for someone who was terrified of that dungeon, that was good. But in terms of, I guess, just the overall picture, it's like, yeah, that is kind of a step down. It makes up for the lack of complexity in that it just has this super taunting, freakish atmosphere, terrifying mid-boss, terrifying boss, such creepy music. But I don't think it makes up enough for the lack of a strong was And I say this as someone who likes when dungeons I can figure out, but yeah, I was going between A and B, so I'd be willing to go B with that.
That's fair. No, and you know, you're right. Like, this is totally the childhood trauma dungeon, but I also think I also rank it lower than I would say knocking it down from A to B, because I think as far as like that scary factor that is really a driving force behind the dungeon, that Bottom of the Well does it better. Like I always found Bottom of the Well scarier than the Shadow Temple, and like in a big way. Like part of my infatuation with maps and dungeon design and stuff like that was literally like I was so scared to play through Bottom of the Well as a kid that I would like sit with a map and map out the fastest way to get through it, get the Lens of Truth, and get the hell out, because I just didn't want to stay in there longer than I had to. So I knew like exactly what do I need to get and what do I not need to get in and get out as fast as I can, because I was so scared. I was like legit so scared of getting in there. And Shadow Temple, it's good, but I'm never feeling that same sense of like terror that I would experience in Bottom of the Well. But Jesse, you're now the one. Like, we're kind of sitting between A and B. What are your thoughts to sway us here?
All right, the first thing that comes to my mind. Have you guys played Mario Golf?
Yes.
I actually have not.
Alright, no. So we talked about music, which is perfect for the Shadow Temple. We talked about bosses, which I think, given the theme of the dungeon, the boss for the Shadow Temple is kind of perfect. The mini-boss is the boss that you fight for the Bottom of the Well, which I think is the same thing that the next dungeon does as well, Spirit Temple. Because you fight the Dead Hand as the mini-boss in the Shadow Temple, correct?
Yeah, and I think I always found Dead Hand scarier than Bongo Bongo as well, because there's a certain like helplessness to that fight. There's ways around it.
You have to do it twice.
Yeah, and then you have to do it twice, and he's so scared. There's something very cathartic about getting to that second fight and then just whooping him with the big Goron sword. But anyways, Jesse, please do continue.
So for dungeons, if we count like backstory and lore, Shadow Temple has the most, I would say, amount of backstory and lore that kind of gives you like a pre-Ocarina of Time status of Hyrule, because it tells you like it's filled with all the like the Sheikah Hylians of War, whatever you want to call it, and it was basically like what they used for their prison, where they're like, oh, let's torture this person, apparently, which like you don't like, it doesn't tell you, hey, we tortured these people, but you see it in the design aesthetic. There's like blood kind of everywhere. There's like torture racks. There's lots of sharp hookey thingies and chains. There's a lot of really good mazes, like actual mazes built out of, you can't go this way, but you can go that way, but you don't know unless you have the Lens of Truth. The boat, which is like a gauntlet battle type of situation. when you have to use an arrow or something, sometimes you can use a bomb chew, but 99% of people use an arrow to hit the bombs to have the statue thing fall over, and then there's like
Yeah.
another room on the
I
other
don't
side of it.
know. I've always known that that's the solution, but I don't know how I ever figured that out. You know, like it's such a cryptic puzzle. Like, who would have thought you shoot an arrow at the bomb that's like way on the other side of this gorge to like knock a bridge over? Like,
Yeah.
what is that?
It's-
Who thought of that?
It's something that like maybe they had an idea like, oh, well, we taught them this in Ocarina or the Dodongo's Cavern when like you use a bomb between the bombs to blow up the other bomb flowers.
But that's using a
But that's a
bomb to
completely different
detonate
scenario.
other bombs,
That's
not
like
arrows.
a staircase where this is a bridge. Yeah, and that is, yes, you're correct. So I do kind of wonder if like the things that's in this maybe is things you're supposed to have learned from the Spirit Temple, which was debatably originally first, along with the Arbiter's Grounds. I don't know if there's a puzzle in Arbiter's Grounds that gives you an idea of, oh, I might need to know this later. It has some of the most interesting block puzzles, where there's the platform with the spikes on the bottom that just like drops from the ceiling. You have to push the blocks under it and go into the different cells. There's a lot of good puzzles. The lore is really good. It has one of the most memorable and uniquely Zelda boss fights, where it's just like basically hands that you're fighting against, which is Minish Cap and a bunch of other games as well. Wind Waker. So I give it high A tier.
Okay, wow. See, that's the thing is that like
based
I
on
would say
everything.
all of like it has so many elements that are really good, and you're so right. Like the lore stuff, it does really well because it's all like subtext. Like they're never outright in your face about it. It's all subtext, which is really cool. And like you're right, like a lot of those individual elements are really great. I just feel like when it all comes together, the larger cohesive picture is weaker than any of those individual things.
Yeah.
And it's like it's
Also,
the only dungeon where the boss room is not right near the entrance and a central room, which can be both good and bad. Like from a atmospheric standpoint, it's good because you're constantly going deeper and deeper underground. It's like that scary factor. Like you're going farther and farther away from where you started. But it's also kind of bad because like
And
if
you
you need to
graveyard.
backtrack for supplies, or you need to go back, or you die and you start at the beginning of the dungeon, you have to go all the way there, like that, and that's just an annoyance. You know what I mean? But like you're right, like there's so many cool set pieces. The ferry ride comes to mind as being one that's really cool. Dead Hand is of course the childhood nightmare boss, mid boss. I don't know. I just feel like it does so many individual things right, yet somehow when everything comes together, it's not as good as like the Forest Temple or Water Temple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know who would be mad at you?
Who?
Andy. from
Andy.
McIntyre Productions.
Really? Why? Why?
It was his favorite dungeon of all time, from what I remember.
Really? Shadow
Oh.
Temple was his favorite dungeon of all time. That's surprising. That's surprising. You know what my favorite Zelda dungeon is Stone Tower. But
Oh,
That's right.
don't tell
yeah.
Tubes.
Stone Tower. Yeah, she does. She but
Also, if you're listening, we love you, Tubes. Have
we
fun
do.
on your boat.
We do. Forest Temple's really far up there too. But yeah, I mean, like I the thing is, like some of my favorites, it's like it's a little bit all over the place with Zelda dungeons. Like I really like Earth Temple from Wind Waker, and Arbiter's Grounds, and Snow Peak, and then like Ancient Cistern, and the Sand Ship, and then like Forest Temple, Water Temple. Like it's a little eclectic. It's all over the place, but I think like Stone Tower is like peak 3D Zelda dungeon for me. So yeah, don't tell Tube. So okay, so we're kind of at a
Oh gosh.
we're kind of undecided here between Jesse's saying
What is the average?
A.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Everyone in the chat, if you think it is S, A, B, or C, just fill the chat up right now. A, B, C, S. Put it in the chat. Maybe you'll be the common denominator.
Geek, you said
Two of us said B.
you said B as well. Yeah, that's right.
But I said a
Yeah.
strong A.
He said yes. He says we're both sitting at like firm like B. He says Jesse wants to straddle it between S and A tier. Oh no.
Oh.
If it-
Yeah.
two out of three, it would be B. Okay. Give it a high B. Or else.
I mean I don't think we have like half marks here, but I'll put it slightly raised there for you. The chat, we've got an A, we've got a B, we've got an either A or B. Bree says A. But is
we got
C.
C.
Okay.
But I was just like, I don't care, dude.
See, that's like again. I think I just want to say there's no shame in a B. Like that's still good. I don't think any of these are bad dungeons, right?
None of them are
you-
coming in at D.
Okay, question.
That's true. We have had no Ds.
Think not Zelda related. This is a personal issue I took. Think back to high school letter grades. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, what was if you had a 70 on a test? What letter grade did you get?
I don't remember. I've been out of high school for over a decade. I don't remember.
Okay, what number was failing?
What? 70s were C's.
70s or C's? Are they? That's
What?
gotta at least be
That
C
meant you were-
plus, right? Like
So
No.
Geek, if you had a 69, was that pass or fail?
Fail.
Then how was a 70 a C?
70 was a C minus. You didn't want
But
to go.
F is fail.
you had harder
You don't
marks than I
Oh.
did.
D.
I mean,
I-
I was homeschooled and basically like you needed to do at least average or higher. So you need to
Okay,
be
so-
75 or higher.
I recently found out that in my grade schooling, 70 was a D minus, like that's the lowest grade you could get while still passing, and 69 was fail, F. But in Canada, instead of like getting 7 out of 10 to pass, you only need to get like 5 out of 10.
Yeah, no. For
So, like-
for when I went to school, you needed more than 50% to pass. Like 50% is a
We
passing
needed
rate.
more than
Oh.
70.
So I just looked it up
Yeah.
on the government website here. So for British Columbia, where I live, yeah. So 90 to 100 is A plus. 85 to 89 is A. 80 to 84 is A minus. 76 to 79 is a B plus. 72 to 75 is a B. 68 to 72 is B minus. So we had like plus minus for everything apparently. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, we did too.
And then yeah, 64 to 67 is C plus, 60 to 63 is C, 55 to 59 is C minus, 50 to 55 is D, and then anything lower than 50% is either an incomplete or fail. So
Yeah, so
so
your C's
Canada's
would be
more
a fail
lenient, I
for me.
guess.
No, not in ours. Well, they're C's, yes,
Yeah.
but technically C is traditionally supposed to represent average, and B would be above average, and A is like, wow, really above average. So like with this list, S is like, you just exceeded everything. You are a higher power. So A is like, no, you were way above average. So for us, saying B is like, no, you're still above average,
Yeah, no, and I definitely want to iterate.
even
Like,
if our percentages are off.
there's no shame in a B. Like a B is a good mark. And
No.
again, like Guy said, we haven't put anything in D here. We're not saying any of these are bad dungeons. So, yeah,
No.
yeah. So
Okay, because like I just remembered. The reason I brought that up is because I just remembered where I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Daniel is Canadian.
surprise.
So
yeah,
his
yeah.
what's been pounded in his head as like an A, B, C, or D may be different than what's been pounded in America's head as A, B, C, or D.
Maybe.
So
I also haven't been in the public school system. Well, unless you count college, but not really. I was homeschooled middle through high school, and my mom was always very like, A is what you want to aim for, but like,
yes.
if your best is average, a C, I can't argue with that. She was like, that's your
So-
best.
On this Shadow Temple thing, Daniel, are you saying it's like a Canadian B?
He's saying it's above average.
It's above. Yeah, exactly. Like I would say that it's like A is perfect. It like an A tier is like perfect marks. It's great. I have no like not really like anything. S is like beyond perfect. It's so good. It's like perfect isn't even good enough. And B is just like very good. That's what I say. Like B is very good, not bad.
Yeah.
Very good.
S
C is like
you got
it's
all the
fine.
answers correct,
It's average.
plus
and
all
then-
of the bonus answers.
Yeah, so like I really say yeah, I like B, B is not bad. I'm not going by Canadian letter grade percentages because honestly, my academic career, if you want to call it that, was a mess. I was not a great student. I wouldn't even like think of it that way, to be honest, because like the way that I worked through school, and if anyone is younger, don't do this. I regret doing it this way. The way my grades often came out was the courses I was interested in, I would get A's in. So like theater and I did like television production class and stuff like that. English, I was really into. And then the classes I wasn't interested in, I did as much as I needed to, and that's it. And so I'd get like a C-.
Daniel.
And
I was the same way.
And it's like, okay, I'm not interested in this class, so I'm just going to do what I need to do to pass, and that's it, because I don't want to put in the effort. And by the way, don't do that, people. Kids, do good in school. It's important. But yeah, I mean, that was my being a stupid teenager, right? So yeah, don't. And once I was out of school, I was like, I'm not a school person, I don't think so. Yeah, I wouldn't argue the Canadian letter grade system, because I wouldn't even stick to that. So yeah.
What if the Shadow Temple is not a B tier dungeon? You're just a B tier player.
Hey, whoa, whoa!
James is what he's interested in, which means he always gives his all.
Yeah, I throw my all into every Zelda dungeon.
Maybe you're just not a real Zelda fan.
Okay, I see how it is.
But think about it. I'm also giving it a B, and I'm doing it with the American standards.
Yeah, but you
It's
said
good.
A or B.
We're not
didn't you?
saying it's bad.
I did, but then when I thought about it, I was like, nah, it leans more B. I just can't put it in the same category as the Water Temple. But I can put it in the same category as Dodongo. Now, if we're categorizing within the letters, I do think it's above Dodongo and Fire Temple, but not above enough to be with Water and Deku Tree.
So what you're
Yeah,
saying is
yeah.
we're no longer friends.
Wow.
I
No, I
really
think
didn't think it'd be the Shadow Temple would be the one that
I
we
didn't.
have a
I
hard
really
time
thought
with.
Water Temple was gonna be the divisive one here, not
Me
Shadow
too.
Temple. I'm shocked. I don't think that it's a bad dungeon by any means. I wholeheartedly agree with everything Geek said. You know, it's good. It's very good. It's just not as amazing as, you know, Forest and Water Temple, and it doesn't quite achieve everything it sets out to do, like Inside the Great Deku Tree does flawlessly. It's just like it's good. It's just not the most amazing dungeon.
It's like
ever.
when someone has pure vanilla ice cream and they're like, but would you rather have cookies and cream?
Sure.
And you're like,
You know,
I mean,
and
I don't
vanilla
like
ice cream is
cream,
still
and I do like
good.
cookies and cream.
Vanilla ice cream's still
Oh,
good.
I don't like vanilla ice cream.
Oh.
Oh, my thing turned on.
Oh,
Why?
let there be light.
well, it's like if someone gives you a salad and they're like, but would you rather have a ranch on your salad?
Ranch? The dressing?
Yes.
I mean,
You said branch.
okay, I would rather ranch than no dressing, but I would rather a different
Okay.
dressing than ranch.
Thousand Island?
So, no, not Thousand Island.
Thousand Island
no.
dressing.
Mm-mm. No.
I love Thousand Island. No,
We'll
I
have
love
this
Olive Garden
conversation later.
dressing.
All right, so
Let's have this conversation later.
B tier.
Spirit Temple.
All right, Spirit Temple, I would put in S. I think Spirit Temple is so good. I love
It's
that.
perfect. Aonuma should retire after making that dungeon.
it's so good. It's up there with Forest Temple. Its atmosphere so good. Like you walk into it, you're hit with that music. It's like boom, like this whole like wave of music just like crashing over you. You actually have to like make use of the time travel mechanic of the game that's like in the game's title to get through the dungeon. I love that. Iron Knuckles are awesome to fight. I love that. It's just like it's a really well-rounded, superbly well-designed, awesome dungeon. Mirror Shield's cool. Light reflecting puzzles are cool. It's just, it does everything so well. And the story stuff with like Nabooru is awesome. I love that. It's like you're infiltrating enemy territory, and the Gerudo are painted as being these villains, these thieves the whole time. And then you meet Nabooru, who just like totally shifts your perspective of the Gerudo. And you know, they're not just all like thieves and bandits. They're just kind of have a crappy king at the moment. and there's this sort of idea
which
of
we
like,
learned from Breath of the Wild. They're all amazing in it when they don't have a king.
That's true. And there's this shift in like your perspective there with Nabooru, and I think it's as far as like the story stuff, really good. I think the layout is lovely and symmetrical, and I love that. The architecture is awesome. With the Gerudo architecture is so different than all the other architecture we've seen in the game. They even made up a Gerudo script language, even though most of it's just alphabet on the walls. And the music is so good. I love the music almost as much as I love the Forest Temple's music. I think it's S tier through and through. But that's me. What do you guys think?
So
Geek, you go.
yeah, so I agree with all of that, yet I want to say A. And I think my reasoning, I almost said B, I'm not gonna lie. But here's why though.
He's just like, I'm out. he just peace out.
Well, my reason being because I haven't had as much experience with this dungeon. My history with Ocarina of Time, sadly, has been I get to the Shadow Temple, I finish the Shadow Temple, I'm on like, this was a long time ago, like on the verge of a panic attack because it freaks me out so much. I'm apparently very sensitive, y'all. Did you figure that out? And I just would be like, I'll play it in a couple days, and then I never play it again. So I don't have a ton of experience with Spirit Temple. The only reason I would say A is I think I just personally don't enjoy it, even though I think objectively it's good. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm like, no, this is good. I just don't enjoy it. And I don't like deserts. I hate the desert. I am Anakin Skywalker. I hate sand.
After I stood by you in this,
Sure.
I stood by your side in this
nuance
Shadow
of
Temple debate, and you stabbed me in the back. No, you know what
But
though?
my reasoning is such a weird nuance.
It's true. It's funny though you mentioned about the desert thing. Zelda games are like the only games where I think like they really make desert themed areas actually really good. A lot of other games struggle with that.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I love them.
A lot of games struggle with that. The desert areas are kind of bland or whatever, but like no, Zelda games nail it with desert areas consistently, I think.
Super Mario 64
The
is pyramid
music
level.
is the music alone is S tier. I do agree with that.
The music's so good. It's Koji Kondo, just like his brain in overdrive. Like it's Koji Kondo at his best in those two, Forest Temple and Spirit Temple, I think.
They did cleverly use both young and adult Link, so I'm okay with giving it S tier. It's just with that caveat of I personally would say A only because of weird nuanced biases that I can't explain.
All right, Jesse. What do you think?
Well, first off,
What do you think?
Geek is wrong.
My opinions are wrong.
No, I see what she's saying, but she's still wrong. No,
Hey, in chat, Koji Kondo is S tier.
He is S tier. Koji Kondo is a certified genius in my eyes. I think he is the S tier man.
Agreed.
I Maybe the Spirit Temple seems more like a light temple. Because there's more light themed puzzles than there are. I don't even know what spirit themed puzzles would look like. I guess that kind of makes sense. Spirit, light, yeah. I like that it equally splits. Like, oh, here's the dungeon. This is because all the other dungeons was like, oh, this was here as an adult. They're like, this was here. You just didn't know it was here before. The Forest Temple, like you have visited that area previously. The Fire Temple, like you knew there was something going on with that volcano when you were a kid. You just couldn't travel that far in it. So when the timer comes on, you're like, oh, well, there must be something here that I need to get later to venture through and figure out what is here. And if you're lucky, you can get the magic meter or whatever it is from there. The Water Temple, you're like, okay, yeah, this was here, but you've already been there 1,000 times before. The Shadow Temple, you're like, yeah, I've been to the graveyard. I've been to this entrance. Spirit Temple, your first time there is literally your first time there as an adult. Like, the Gerudo standing in front of you is like, yeah, there's a bridge here, but you're not allowed to pass. But when you're an adult, there is no bridge. And then you have to go through, save all the carpenter people. There's all the stuff, and that's not even where the dungeon is. Then you have to, go through another area where you're trying to get through the desert. It has its own lore, the guy on the magic carpet, the ghost that you have to follow. You have to have the hover boots just to make it across, or the long shot. And then you finally get to the temple, and it's like, oh, you're too big to crawl through this hole, you're not strong enough to push that block. What do you do? So then you come back as a kid, you can crawl through the hole, then you get the thing that allows you to push the block. And the way it does the Shadow Temple bottom of the well thing a lot better than the bottom of the well in Shadow Temple does.
Yes, because I agree with that, because the Spirit Temple's still one building. There's rooms that overlap,
yes,
like between going through as child and adult Link. So I feel like that concept's done better here for sure.
Yeah, and it's like combining the Fire Temple with the Shadow.
And Twin Rove is a great boss as well. I think that's a fantastic boss fight as well. The light puzzle thing is interesting because there's
Majora's Mask.
I always remember there being more than there actually are. There's like one light puzzle where you have to shine, or there's a couple where you have to shine lights in onto like the sunblocks from another room. But when it's actually like reflecting off mirrors, there's like 2, and that's it. And I always remember there being more than that. But that's all there is. But I think it's just that, like Forest Temple, it's that sweet spot of complexity. And without being too complicated, you can still find your way around, but still makes you stop and like think about what you're doing a bit. And I think it's real good. I think it's real good. So
it's also the only time that it shows you the main boss is not only tied to the main boss of the entire game, but you literally see the creation of the mini boss from the bosses of the dungeon, where like the main bosses for the dungeon literally create the mini boss that you fight as Child Link right in front of your eyes.
Yeah, and we bring up with the boss and stuff, and I feel like with the bosses, they're not just an arbitrarily large monster in a big room. Them being there feels like a story point, like it's driving the plot forward. And I love that. I love that about it. The whole dungeon.
It's also teased in the intro of the game.
Yes, that's true. Actually, they just tease it a little bit on the title screen. I think it's a great dungeon. I would say within the S tier that I'd rate Forest Temple higher than Spirit Temple, but I would say that it's still so good that I would put it in S. What about you, Jesse? So Geek said A. I'm saying S. You have to be the tiebreaker.
Well, first off, Geek is wrong. But second, I don't know if I would put it above or beside Forest Temple. because both have stories that connect really well for the dungeon to the game.
We need the answer, Jesse.
You're basically saying S tier.
You can do it, Jesse.
I've already conceded that I'm okay with S tier.
Come on, Jesse.
S tier, but behind Forest Temple.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm aligned with
Temple.
that. I think that's
Okay.
pretty much what I'm thinking too. It's like I wouldn't put it above Forest Temple. I think Forest Temple is peak dungeon in this game, but it's up there with S tier. Okay, all right. So, Ganon's Castle. It's our last dungeon to get through tonight for our little tier list.
A tier.
I would say A as well.
A is fine.
A is fine. Fair enough.
I don't have
Lower
time
A
to
tier.
stay that dungeon.
The thing is, yeah, I would say lower A tier as well, because the dungeon has kind of like two sections. There's the one where it's like a little bit of a recap, like you do a little bit of a mini like section of the dungeon that's related to a previous dungeon mostly,
Except the Wind Temple.
and ice. And there's like ice cavern instead of a water temple part, and then for some reason a wind temple instead of forest temple. It's a little weird, but then yeah, you have these like little mini sections. I feel like that part's a little weaker because it's like this like wheel and spokes sort of section. It just feels like you're just kind of doing like, okay, tasks, whatever. But
Yeah.
it compensates by having that second section, which is that what I call the red carpet ascent up the tower. The spiral staircases where it's like you're doing up this tower, you fight some really tough enemies, and then you go up this tower, and there's the ominous building music with Ganondorf literally in the game playing his own theme song on an organ at the top of the tower, and it's this constant rising tension as you're making your way up, and the music is building, and then of course you face off against Ganondorf, and then Ganon transforms, and I think it's just like the perfect climax for the game. And even though that first part of the dungeon is weaker for me, that other part makes up for it enough for it to be A tier. That's my stance.
And you have to like leave the dungeon and then come back.
That part I don't like. That would be one thing I don't like, is that you get the golden gauntlets, you have to go to the Great Fairy Fountain. I would say that's like, I don't like having to do that, but at least it's like you only have to go like to the area right outside. So it's mostly forgivable. But yeah.
The Ganondorf boss fight is really good, and the Ganon boss fight is also really good, and then making your way down the tower as it's collapsing is something I don't think any other Zelda game has done.
No, you're right. I don't think so. I can't think of it in any other Zelda game. You're so right.
Because Wind Waker has a similar thing where you have to go through all the different sections, I believe.
Yes.
Where you have to like refight the bosses.
That's right.
Twilight Princess has like the opposite, to where it is the castle, like Ocarina of Time, but the castle is its own dungeon, as opposed to a bunch of mini dungeons collected.
Yes, you are right. And I think between those, I actually think that Twilight Princess does it a little bit better on the dungeon side of things, but Ocarina of Time does it better on the boss fight side of things. I think that those Ganondorf and Ganon boss fights are just like so good.
Yeah. That's like, why is Ganon different story for a different time? But why is Ganondorf running away from you in Twilight Princess? Like, he's on his horse running away. Like, isn't his whole thing like he wants to kill you? Like, this is what he wanted.
I played through that in Twilight Princess like last week, and I'll say it's only kind of running away from you. He kind of like baits you, and then he launches an attack back at you. So he's kind of like baiting you along. It's like a cat and mouse tactic, but he's not like running away from you like he's like scared of you. It's more like that's his sort of his tactic. And then actually even if you don't stun him, like, and then he'll circle around and take swipes at you with his sword too. So he's not just like,
oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Well, I was doing it for a video, so I was trying to get like a lot of interesting footage for it, and yeah. So, but yeah, it's I think that the bosses and for the most part in Twilight Princess are a little weaker than Ocarina's for the finale one specifically, like Ganondorf. But yeah. Yeah, Joseph says, it felt rushed. They didn't fix the throwback to previous dungeon rooms to match the actual themes, so it doesn't totally hit the mark of what it's trying to do, like Wind Waker does. That is a good point. And that's always, or that's part of why I say it's a little bit weaker feeling than, or that part of the dungeon is weaker feeling. But I feel like the ascent upwards through Ganon's tower, after that part is like really, it's like not complex on the navigational side, but it's really good. It's really fun to do, and it's just like totally building climax, which I think is like, it doesn't have to be complicated if that's what it's going for, you know. Yeah.
And then the descent is also really well.
The descent, yeah, the escape sequence is pretty good as well.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Because the time limit still goes when you're fighting the 𝗙𝗵𝗲 or whatever.
The 𝗙𝗵𝗃s and Redad.
Yeah, 𝗙𝗵𝗲s.
Yeah, totally.
And Zelda's like, follow me, and then you run in front of her, and she's like, needs to hurry up.
Yeah, it does bother me. Zelda's running speed is slower than yours, and so if you get ahead of her, if you get too far, she'll stop and wait for you to catch up, but you're actually ahead. It's annoying. so
because she can't roll in a dress.
But it is hard. Yeah, she's running in a dress and heels, I guess. It's fine. But maybe she should have kept the 𝗍𝗃 the ninja gear, you know?
Yeah. Then she could have just warped to the bottom. Yeah, she could have just like snapped her fingers and warped to the bottom.
Yeah, but then she'd be leaving you behind with no way out. So that's why she doesn't, I guess. Yeah, but I also, yeah, the Ganon boss fight especially, like the Ganondorf one is good, but the Ganon fight at the end is like incredible.
Especially as a little kid, you're like,
oh yeah,
okay,
totally, totally, and it's like just like the atmosphere of it, like the scale, he's huge, and it's so. And this is another reason I think the N64 version is superior, because it's like too bright in the 3DS version, but in the original it's like really dark and moody, and there's like thunder. Like the only time you can really see Ganon's features are when there's like a stray like bit of light from like thunder coming down. Otherwise he's mostly like silhouette because it's so dark. I think it's just like,
it lets you do the swordless link glitch
if you want to do the swordless link glitch. Yeah, I think it's really fantastic finale. Yeah, I would say
it gives a proper use for the Megaton hammer again.
Unless you have the Big Goron sword, which is better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I'm saying A. We all said A then, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that's
now the rumored Sky Temple.
The rumored Sky Temple. I'm gonna put in D for doesn't exist. So.
Yeah. There you go.
Good.
There we go. Well, that's all 9 dungeons. I am looking at this. I feel like it's kind of weird seeing the inside the Deku Tree up here with Water Temple again. It's tower.
I know.
But like in high, like that was the first one we did. So I'm like, maybe we were too generous to it. But I think our argument was fair.
It's quick.
It's quick,
but it's still good.
I think also what's good about it is it's like, because of that quickness, if you're experienced, you can get through it really fast and you're not like bored.
2, 3, 1.
But if you're new to it, like it actually will like take you time and you have to like learn all the stuff, and it teaches you well. So yeah. But okay, so this is our tier list. If you guys are watching and you hate it and you disagree with us, please tell us. If you have other emotions about
I'm
it,
used to those comments. It's okay.
Sorry, just saying. But no, please let us know your thoughts on these, and if you agree or disagree, because I mean, I think we made our cases pretty well for this. I think so. I think we know this game pretty well, and we were able to argue our stances.
I've only played it like
every day. No. I'm shocked about that the Shadow Temple was the divisive one. I'm actually really surprised about that. I feel like it's
well, it's just because you guys are wrong.
No. No. There's no shame in a B. That's all I'm saying. There's no shame.
No, not at all.
No shame there. So I feel good about that. I feel good about this, what we've come up with here. I think I'll have to like save this. I'll maybe post it on the Hylian Gamescast Twitter page. Make sure to follow that as well. And yeah.
How would we do that? How would we type of all of that.
Go to Twitter, look up Hylian Gamescast, hit the follow button. Make sure
Cool.
to maybe follow Jesse and Geek and myself, and I guess Kayla if you feel like it, as well while you're there on
You're a fan of boats.
So I guess that brings us to the mailbag. I'm just gonna peek into Discord here. Did we even get any mailbag questions?
Well, I was gonna say, per usual, this is when I usually bow out.
That's
And my
fair.
throat's actually starting to hurt, and I have to sing a lot tomorrow, so this is as good a time as any to get out.
Well, Geek, before you leave, may I say I hope you have a wonderful night and day tomorrow, and thank you for joining.
Yeah. And before you
You
go,
all as well.
make sure to tell all these lovely people watching, if they don't know already. I'm sure many of them do, but if they don't know where to find you, how to find you, why to find you, please tell.
Why is Gamora?
Why?
I am the Geek Apprentice. You can find me here on YouTube. I had a video come out last Saturday with a pretty outlandish theory, but it was fun to do nonetheless. The theory that Zelda dies in Breath of the Wild 2, but not really. And I have a video that I'm if I can really push it, I might be able to put it out late tomorrow. But if not, it'll come out like Saturday or Sunday. I do Zelda and Animal Crossing and there are a bunch of other topics I talk about that I never get to anymore. I also stream usually on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will not be streaming tomorrow as it is Good Friday, so I will be doing lots of stuff all day. Well, not all day, but like, it's a very solemn day. Anyway, yeah, I also have a Twitter and an Instagram if you so wish. Yeah, that's me. I am the Geek Apprentice. Hi.
Question.
Lovely.
Answer.
You had a poll up earlier about a little tease for the video you're doing tomorrow.
I did. I totally forgot I posted that. What about the poll?
I don't know.
Yeah, I post polls on my community tab.
No. I was wanting to know what kind of video it was, but I don't want you to give it out before you're ready. So I'll just wait. I'll be surprised.
It is one of the ones on that list.
It's one of those topics. We just don't know which one.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for
I like
joining
that
us.
it's finally another How to Train Your Dragon video.
Yeah, because I haven't done one of those in almost a year.
Oh, that's
I
been
haven't done
long.
Harry Potter in like 2 years.
Well, we appreciate you being here as always. I know you're very busy, so thank you so much for taking the time to grace us with your presence online.
Yes.
It was a good time.
Hey, what? I thought
Have
it was
a-
fun.
Good night and a better Good Friday tomorrow. Or today. I don't know what time it is.
It's midnight already.
Okay.
So it is already Good Friday. All right. Good night, y'all.
Good night.
Bye.
And then
Hi,
there
Daniel.
were two. I gotta fix this. Hold up. Whoop. I'll just put you right up here. All right. Oh, you know what I can do.
How you doing?
How you doing?
When's the next time you're gonna make a Harry Potter video?
Good question. I don't know. I don't know.
Do you have a video going up tomorrow?
I don't have a video going up tomorrow. No, I don't. I'm still hard at work with editing the video that I was working on. So so soon, I'm sure. Soon. But yeah. So
Don't forget that rocket launcher.
the rock. That does get mentioned. Don't worry. Yes. But this is the Zelda mailbag now, people. Please throw us your questions. Before we start jumping into the questions, though, we got a super chat from Taker610. Thank you, Taker, for the super chat. Appreciate it. Zelda released this year, Age of 𝗏𝗄𝗄's Definitive Edition. I kind of hope not, to be honest. I mean, the DLC is not that old now. Oh no, it came out like before the end of the year, didn't it? Okay.
It's like a few months ago.
It's been like half a year more than maybe. So that's my bad. But yeah, I think it was like October when it came out. So it's been out for a while. But I feel like they'll save a definitive edition for like a next console thing. Maybe. We'll see. Bunny said, "Can I just say I'm happy to use the old Bandai Namco logo? Not a fan of the newer one." Oh, this old thing? I didn't realize they had changed the logo actually. So it was a happy accident, I guess. Okay, so Zelda mailbag time. Please throw us your questions in the chat, and we may or may not answer them depending on how good of a question
Was
they are.
Bandai Namco the ones that had us play that Sonic racing game?
I don't remember. I want to say no.
That's the best answer.
Joseph in the chat asked, here's a good question. Since you can't view the chat, I'm just going to grab all the questions. Sorry, Jesse.
I can't see anywhere.
Since you can't see it, it's up to me now. Joseph asked, when is the next Direct going to be now that E3 is canceled? That's a good question. Now, we don't actually know because we have no insider knowledge, as you know. But I want to say sometime this summer. July. August. I'm thinking like mid to late June, maybe early July. I think that's what feels right to me. What do you think, Jesse?
I want to say around June 8th.
June 8th?
Yes.
That's so specific. How come?
They're not dealing with the ESA.
Are you thinking like because they'll be doing something at Summer Games Fest?
No.
No?
No, I think maybe, yeah, but differently. This isn't
Please
like
explain.
when last year when we were no. Okay, so this is not like last year when everyone's like, "Do you think they'll have a Zelda event at E3?" And we were like, "No, it'll probably be sometime later in the summer," because they had something planned later. This isn't like that where they invited me to a thing and then they broke my heart. Nothing to do with anything like that. I'm just saying June 8th because June 8th or around June 8th.
But based on what? But why do you say June 8th? Why? I need to know.
There's no reason.
There's no reason. Just because June 8th. All right, so
around June 8th.
So we went in opposite directions with this question.
Okay, maybe week of June 8th.
I gave a very wishy-washy July August, and you said I was a very wishy-washy, and you went hard on June 8th for no reason. All right, I love it. Here's a question. If Nintendo is to drop 2 out of the 3 linear branches of the Zelda timeline and just go on making sequels/prequels in a single timeline, which one would you like it to be? I would say, like they erase 2 times, or not erase, but just like stop adding games to one of them, or to 2 of them, I'd say.
Or they left it up to Grezzo and Tantalus, and Nintendo only focused on 1.
I would say Child's timeline, then.
I would say you are correct.
Yeah, because adult timeline, you're looking at the Wind Waker side of things, Great Sea, and then you have Spirit Tracks. I just don't feel like there's anywhere to go from there. I feel like the adult timeline, they kind of wrapped it up neatly in a bow, and it's like they're probably never going to touch it again. It just kind of sucks to say, unless they do remakes of those games. But I feel like they're not going to add to it. The only additions to the Downfall timeline, again, feel like remakes or weird cases like A Link Between Worlds, where it's like they were going to do a remake and then they kind of did a reimagining that's like also a sequel. I feel like that's sort of like a weird thing where it's like added later, but for the most part, they're not really like touching it. Child timeline, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, that sort of feels like the line that they're going to follow, unless they do prequels and just go back to the start of the timeline like they did with Skyward Sword. So yeah, so I'd say Child timeline. What do you think, Jesse? You give me a thumbs up.
Who is everyone's favorite side companion.
Groose. Oh, I mean Midna. Sorry. Midna. And Groose.
Groose is still in technically the child timeline as well. But yes, Midna. Everyone wants to see Midna return. If that does happen, it would be like a Twilight Princess related thing. And like they started on Twilight Princess 2, same way they started on Wind Waker 2. But I would just rather see more of that because that's the one that we have the less in. Like we have Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks. Like we already know what happens through there. We don't know what happens with like it gets so murky between Twilight Princess and Four Swords Adventures, so it's like
I also feel like a lot of people subscribe to the theory that Breath of the Wild falls into the child timeline, just like way in the future. I mean, you guys all know my stance on it is the whole timeline convergence, the Dragon Break theory.
yes.
But I do feel like if you took that off the table, if you were like, no, it's not a timeline convergence, no, Dragon Break's not allowed, you have to just pick one timeline, Daniel. If someone like held a gun to me and said that, of those, I would pick Child's timeline as well.
What do you mean if Shubas was hanging out with you? And I was like,
And
pick a
yes.
timeline.
Yes.
Not that she would hold a gun to you.
Yeah. Midna wasn't an Age of Calamity or an Age of Clams, sorry, of aging clams and tea. I would say because
Is that what it is
make
now?
sense.
Aging?
Like they're getting old. Aging clams and tea.
Well, that is true.
Yeah, I would say like it doesn't make sense to in like she was already in Hyrule Warriors where they kind of it's like non-canon, it's dubiously canon. They warp people in from different times, but Age of Calamity it doesn't.
Like the dubious food.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense for me.
It's just like a bunch of crap on a plate.
Ugh, it's so bad they had to censor it. Here's a question from John. Also, thank you for that question there, Jorge. I appreciate it. That was actually a very good question about the timeline.
Jorge?
John.
Hi, Jorge. I love you.
John asks, any new news on the Oracle games coming to Switch? I don't think we have any new news about that. I don't even know if we have any old news about that, but I would like to see.
No, that was the old rumor from someone who had been saying it for the past 5 years. That is all there is.
Yeah, so no new news or old news or old new news or new old news. I would say I would love it, but we have nothing to substantiate it.
We are in favor of it, but doubtful of it.
Did you hear that? That was my cat meowing in the hallway. Oops.
Good for Midna.
Oops. Let's see. Bunny asks, do you think we will ever get Vaati in a 3D console Zelda game? Vaati is a great villain. I love him. But I think that unless Capcom is involved, no. I think Vaati falls into one of those like weird IP ownership sort of spots. Do you know what I mean? One of those weird places, and it sucks because I like Vaati as a villain, and I think is kind of interesting to see. I'd love to see more. But yeah, what do you think, Jesse? Vaati.
As we had a discussion about a couple months ago, all the people from Flagship, the team between Capcom, Nintendo, and Sega, most of those people are already working at Nintendo. So if they wanted to bring Vaati back, which I imagine they would have wanted to, since they would have been the ones who came up with the idea to create Vaati, then they would have, but they haven't. And the only reason I could think of that they haven't is just because that is a Capcom Nintendo thing. Same way that Super Mario RPG, they couldn't use that name, then change it to Paper Mario because that was a Square Enix Nintendo thing.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point about like a lot of those Capcom employees jumped over to Nintendo, including Fujibayashi, right? And so
yes,
it's like what it reminds me of is Platonics, Platonic Games. Who made the ukulele games, and it's just because it's those same people, like a lot of the team that worked on the banjo games, they formed Platonic Games, and they wanted, like, they'd love to make a new banjo game. We're working on it, I'm sure. I have no doubt about it. They love those characters, but the people don't own the rights to those characters. Rare, the company that they used to work for, does. And so they can't make a banjo game. They make ukulele instead, which is great. They have their own IP now. It's all good. But yeah, I think it's the same situation. So even though all those people from Capcom are now working on the Zelda series, they can't touch those Capcom properties like 𝗏𝗧𝗃, I don't think. Just because licensing and intellectual property laws and all this stuff is weird and janky. So, yeah, I think it
did we even see
sucks.
𝗏𝗧𝗃 come back in Hyrule Warriors?
No, I don't think so. I don't think 𝗏𝗧𝗃
And that was the thing
Warriors.
that literally brought all the bad guys back? Even Tingle?
What? Did we play the same Hyrule Warriors? They had Sia and Ganondorf as the
Yeah, but they had
antagonists.
like Gearhand, Zant, Ganondorf.
Yeah.
Like there was that scene where like they're all like standing beside each other. So like it brought
Right.
back the main bad guys from all the Zelda games except for 𝗏𝗏𝗃. And they had DLC
Right.
for almost every single character that you could think of. You could even like use a boat to attack people. So-
Marin from Link's Awakening even as a character, which
Yeah,
was like
so
bonkers.
if they had the option to make 𝗏𝗏𝗃 a character, I'm pretty sure they would have.
Good point.
Because they made
Good point.
you pay for everyone.
They
so.
did. Everyone is here and expensive. We got another super chat, by the way, from Taker610. Thank you
Ooh.
for the super chat. The king of super chats, I swear. They say, I missed so much Zelda never owning a GBC, a GBA,
Me too.
DS, or
Yeah,
3DS. Has Nintendo put out
Oh.
new enough Zelda, considering they're a one console company now? Yeah, I'd say, honestly, you know what? I would say, because they've been pretty consistent about like their annual releases. Who knows what we'll see this year.
Mhm.
I would say overall that, like, yeah, they've been consistent enough. Obviously, like, I missed out on a lot of those too. Like, the DS was actually my first handheld, so I never had a Game Boy Color, or Game Boy Advance. So those all were games I had to sort of go back for. Like, Link's Awakening, I first played in 2015 because I went out and bought a Game Boy cart. But my Game Boy that I have now is actually my wife's Game Boy. From her childhood, I never had a Game Boy myself. So, but yeah, I feel like they've been good and consistent about their Zelda releases. I have no complaints there. Yeah, Jesse, what do you think, baby?
No
Baby.
real complaints. They started having more spin-offs when they stopped doing as many top-down Zelda games. Like they had Cadence of Hyrule. We started having more remakes or remasters as opposed to top-down games, but those are mostly third-party. But I think they've been good on having at least one a year, sometimes two a year. 3DS had the most Zelda games. There is that interview where Miyamoto and Aonuma do say they are working on a new 2D Zelda game, but that was like 5 or 6 years ago, and then it got canceled right after the interview. Who knows? Yeah, so like, there's a possibility that we will still get a traditional new handheld-esque Zelda game, but that could have evolved into something else, as Zelda games typically do, where they're like, oh, we had some ideas for that, but then we just put it into Breath of the Wild 2 or something like that.
Right, and like Link's Awakening, or sorry, not Link's Awakening, Link Between Worlds, sorry, kind of began as a remake initially of A Link to the Past, which also, I forgot, that was another news story I want to talk about. A Link to the Past turned 30 years old, which is wild. Great game. I think yesterday was its anniversary, his 30th anniversary.
Wait, 30?
Yeah, 30. 30 years old. It was released in 92. And I'm going to just put it out there. A Link to the Past is one of my favorite games ever. I have a lot of it's all nostalgia. I have so much nostalgia for that game. But it's a great game.
The owner of Zelda Dungeon's favorite game.
It's great. It's fantastic. It's a beautiful game. Wonderful game.
Fantastic.
But A Link Between Worlds began as a remake, and then it kind of evolved, like you're saying, to its own sort of thing, which is great. It's a great sort of thing. So, yeah. Also, the Wii U was a Zelda machine So I feel like if you were in that era, even though Nintendo was like kind of struggling, but if you had a Wii U and a 3DS, you could play every Zelda game under the sun, happily, I might add. And
you play the DS games on both.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass, you could get through Virtual Console, or you could just pop the cart in a backwards compatible 3DS. You get like even Minish Cap, and yeah, it's just there's a few Zelda games you couldn't. I don't think Four Swords Adventure is specifically Four Swords Adventure, which was the GameCube game. I think is one of the only ones that you wouldn't have been able to on either of those. But I can't think of any of the other ones that you wouldn't be able to, because even Four Swords got an anniversary release on 3DS. So yeah.
No 20th anniversary. No. 10th anniversary.
No, I'm not sure. It was the 3DS days. It was the early 3DS days, so it might have been 10th.
It was for the 25th anniversary, but I think it was the game's 10th anniversary.
Okay, so yeah, it was probably the 10th. That sounds right. Here's a good question. Jose asks, do you think that Zelda mobile game is still being developed? I don't. I don't. It's been too long. The last Nintendo mobile game we got was Pikmin Bloom, which is pretty somehow lackluster, but also I play it every day. I don't know how that works. I like it. I really am. Every day I'm like still playing it, and then I'm like, why am I playing this? So, I don't know. It's working, I guess. But I really don't. I feel like Nintendo initially set out to like bring all their IPs to mobile. They had like Mario Kart, they had Dr. Mario, they had Miitomo, was that what it was called? The Mii one that they killed. Miitomo. They killed the Miitomo. They had, Pokemon Go, of course, was a major one, although that's more Pokemon Company. But yeah, Fire Emblem Heroes, and they kind of slowly started like kind of scaling back. I think they weren't seeing the success they were hoping to. I think Pokemon Go was really the evergreen one that was really successful, and they couldn't ever like recreate that. I think Dr. Mario got shut down. Miitomo got shut down, and so
Mario Kart's still going.
Mario Kart's still going, but I mean Mario Kart.
Animal Crossing.
Yeah, that's right. There's Animal Crossing. But I feel like for the most part, they're kind of scaling back and reassessing, like, was this success worth it? Is this the energy, like what we want to put our energy into? So I don't think so. I don't think they're still doing a Zelda mobile game. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, like,
I'm totally fine with that.
Pokemon, then I think they would be head first into mobile games. But where they only, like, own the console publishing rights. They're just like, okay, well, I don't think we can do that, so let's just do what we can do, which is console games. But I think mobile games will continue to trickle out because they did buy like half of DNA. So I think, like, I don't think they're going to shut them down after paying millions of dollars for them. So I think they'll continue to do stuff. I don't know if it would be Zelda related. I think it would be like, oh, here's another Mario Run or something, because everyone.
I forgot about Mario Run. Even I forgot about it. Wow. Did you ever think it's funny?
I downloaded it a week ago.
Do you ever think it's funny that there was a game called Sonic Jump, and then there was Mario Run?
Yes.
And the two things that those characters are known for.
I think the next game would be Mario and Sonic at the Olympics for mobile.
That's interesting. Now, in the chat here, Joseph brings up a good point that I'm going to read here. He said, I think the shift to mobile was due in part to the failure of the Wii U and concerns around consoles being dead. But the Switch has brought them back, so the effort into mobile hasn't been as aggressive. I think you hit the nail on the head there, Joseph. I think you're totally right. Switch, the Switch is printing money for them. like the Switch is so successful, and it's actually kind of funny because I remember like being excited for Switch launch, talking to people about it, and people being like, "No, this console's gonna flop. This is a trash concept, blah blah blah," and like this is horrible, and I hate it, even though I have never touched it before in my life or even seen one in person, and stuff like that. So. And it's funny seeing that and like just knowing how now in hindsight 5 years later how successful the Switch really was for Nintendo. Like I have no. And I'd say, yeah, it totally makes sense that given that success, that's where they'd want to put their money into, because unless a mobile game is like really popular with like tons of microtransactions, which, let's be honest, the Nintendo mobile games weren't aggressive with microtransactions anyways. But unless you are, and that's where you're making, like, mobile games are not as profitable as selling a remake of a Game Boy game for $60. So, I mean, especially because they know we'll pay for it. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense that they would dial back their push forward. They would dial it back a bit. But Jesse,
hi,
how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking.
That's good. Should we do maybe? I was gonna say, do you want to pick the last
One
question?
more?
You still can't see the chat.
I wish I could. I wish I could, but
I'm
unable.
sorry.
Maybe next time.
That was a good question though, Jose. Thank you for asking. I liked that one. But okay. I'm just taking a scroll through the chat. There's a few questions in here, by the way, that we actually already answered earlier. Our first topic was about the Bandai Namco thing. So if you're, like, I've seen a couple questions come up about that, and I just want to redirect you to that earlier part of the video where we were talking about it, because I feel like we covered that there. But let's see. Good questions. Are there any good ones in the chat here? Feel free to just throw some out here, because yeah, I'm like, I can't read or write, so I'm illiterate. It needs to be fresh and new and right in front of my face. Dave said, I did enjoy the Link's Awakening remake and Age of Clams, but I kind of wanted a truly new Zelda in the handheld style. I definitely understand that. That's sort of a follow-up to what they super chatted earlier. Bunny actually had a follow-up question to their Vati question from before, which was Capcom actually involved in Four Swords Adventure? I have to check that. I'm going to check that right now. Four Swords.
I want to say I used to think they were, but then Nate corrected me on that. But I think that would have been after. I think it would have been something that started with Capcom during the transition period of flagship games to Nintendo, where they hired Fujibayashi.
Oh, okay.
So like it may have started with them, or the idea did, but then that team went from just being like a mix of Capcom, Sega, and Nintendo to just being Nintendo. And then because it finished as a Nintendo game, then Capcom wasn't credited, but where it was already started out as one. And I assume Nintendo didn't just hire Fujibayashi and a bunch of other people, but they also probably paid Capcom, possibly even Sega, to end the contracts of the employees early so they could hire them directly.
Okay. I'm having trouble finding the answer, actually, because the Zelda Wiki didn't have it on there. Let's see about the Wikipedia, which I know is so reliable.
So don't get into that debate.
Control F Capcom here. On external links under here, it does have Capcom listed, but it doesn't say anything in the development section about Capcom. I'm curious about that actually now, because I hadn't thought too much about that, because Vati is in that game. You know what I mean? So.
There's 2 different Ganondorfs in that game as well.
That's a good point.
I think that it was just like a situation where they're like, oh, it started out being worked on this, and then the team was just bought by Nintendo, and then...
maybe. Maybe. I cannot find the answer anywhere.
I will do research on that, and it may be a video that comes up sometime in the next month. Who knows?
Who knows? But, from what I can find, it doesn't seem to be the case.
Who's the director or producer? Just look at those names.
Okay. Well, under here, what it says is composer Koji Kondo, designer Shigeru Miyamoto, which is like a really vague title, and then developers Nintendo EAD. Okay, so yeah, it looks like probably not for Four Swords Adventure, which is interesting.
It doesn't say Fujibayashi was on it.
I can't find him on here, but I mean, Minish Cap came after him. Fujibayashi was still a Capcom for Minish Cap, wasn't he? So
he said his first game that he was in charge of was Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah, I don't see his name here, but you know what? I have to like play the game and roll credits, I guess. I don't know. I do not know. I do not.
I'll try to do some research on that.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I'm
sure there's interviews at the time that could be translated that tell us something.
Probably. Okay, so here's our last question.
Okay.
What's your wildest prediction for Breath of Wild 2? So just wildest, not like
Daniel does
actual.
mocap for Beetle.
That what? Beetle? They're gonna kill Beetle? Is that what you said?
No, Daniel does mocap for Beetle.
That is a wild prediction. A wildly wrong one. Wildly wrong.
You mean Miyamoto hasn't called you out?
No, I haven't heard anything.
Not since that fated dinner.
They won't talk to me since the incident. No, but
my wildest prediction is that Sean and Joe will be on the week of release for a podcast.
You know, we always joke about how we don't, not joke, we just say like, oh, we have no insider knowledge, all that stuff. But when it comes to scheduling things for the podcast, we do have insider knowledge. We are the insiders for this podcast. So there's that. So, yeah. Okay, so like wildest is I think time travel, even though like a lot of people are really clinging to that. I actually don't think time travel is gonna happen, so I'm gonna put that as my wildest prediction because it goes against everything that
Where's the hero from the past?
Say. No.
So you're saying there's
going
to be some timey-wimey stuff.
I really don't think there's going to be time travel in the game. I just really don't. I don't look at anything about or from that game and think like, wow, time travel shenanigans. We're going back in time. We're going to see, this is the hero. This is Skyward Sword. It's a time loop. And it's all this. I just don't see. I just don't see it.
The time reversal stuff doesn't count as time travel.
The time rewind, in the same way stasis doesn't count as time travel, I would say. That mechanic doesn't count as time travel. You're just kind of like doing a time manipulation, and it's like specific to like one like object in the world. So yeah. Time travel is always cool. I like time travel in games. I would like to have it in there. I just don't see any evidence that actually points towards it. So that's just me. That's just me. So yeah.
Okay, wildest prediction. We go north of Hyrule.
Jesse wants to go to Hytopia. The fashion capital of the world. Yes.
Or the land across the canyon. Whichever.
Either one's good. I actually would like to see outside the map, like to be able to do that. The expanded world, as they say. As Mr. Aonuma says.
Also, within 6 months of the original release, a second version of the game playable on whatever the next console is.
Unless it's a dual release, and then, well, I guess that would still be within 6 months if it's just if it's the same time. But yeah, that would be cool. That'd be cool. Dual release, I'm fine. I'd be fine with dual release on next platform. We'll see. All right. Well, I think
Also, more masks. Give
more
us the bunny
masks.
hood, damn it.
More masks that do stuff.
Give us the bunny hood.
Mm-hmm. Give us the bunny head and a hook shot.
And that pig mask.
Why the pig mask?
So you can, like, because you smell different scents, like with Wolflink. So let us be like, oh, I need a Stella shroom or an iron shroom. So let us like be able to follow a scent to the closest area where those are.
Sure. I mean, you could use
like the Korok mask.
You could use the Sheikah sensor for that in the first game. So I guess because it looks like we won't have the Sheikah slate, they need something, a different way to do it. So sure.
Yeah.
But
and I want to be able to play an ocarina and have a line full of little chicks follow me around.
Fair enough. We have a super chat here from Taker610,
Nice.
the king of super chats. Thank you again for your generosity tonight. We super appreciate the chats.
Yes, thank you.
Did 𝗷𝗵𝗲 confirm underground sections, you think? I think pretty much. Like, they said the sky's above, but also there's more stuff. And I mean, we've seen underground stuff in the trailers, it looks like, so...
And all the shrines are underground.
That's true. That's true. So I mean, I think so. At this point, it's a matter of when, not if. That's for me. That's what I think.
Would you say Yiga clan hideout is underground?
Like it's like in a cave, sort of. Technically,
Are
like
caves
caves
underground?
are underground, but only kinda. That's I guess kinda.
We need more moments.
We need. I need to more carefully consider that, I guess. But
Yeah, we need Dampé and his shovel to start digging some caves for us to explore.
yeah, bring back the shovel of all things. Yes, and give it weapon durability.
Just give
So
it,
it
like,
breaks while you're digging.
bonk the goblin on the head with it. Give it a cartoony, like, Tom and Jerry sound effect.
Oh, you just whack the Boko across the head. Yeah, okay, I'm down with that.
Yeah, knowing you
All
would dig up that mean woman's plants.
Oh no, not the flower lady, flower blight. Yes. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the Zelda mailbag. Thank you guys so much for submitting your questions. I think we powered through a fair good amount of them, so it was good. I think it went good. What do you think? You think it was good?
I think this is the greatest podcast I've been on in the past month.
Wow, that's real nice of you to say. I thought our last one was good too, but you know what? I thought this was fun. I thought like the tier list thing was a really last minute idea because we had to kind of round things out. We didn't have as many topics as usual. Apologize, my bad. So, but I thought it was fun to like
Next week will be a normal podcast.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. So I think this was fun. I had a good time. I had a good time arguing about Zelda.
It's always a good time hanging out with you.
It's a good time when Jesse's here. That's the truth. Well, we should probably sign off here. It's now 10 p.m. my time, so it's even later for you, Jesse. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out in the chat here. I guess because you're the game over guy, I'll just go first if that's okay. And tell you all. My name is Daniel.
By all means.
You can find links in the video description to all of my socials and my everything if you want to hear me talk about Zelda Dungeons even more, or other video topics about Zelda or Metroid or whatever, or hang out with me on live streams. Feel free to go check out my channel and my content. It's a fun time. It's a good time. We have a fun time. And did you know, Jesse, I've had this running series called Breath of the Wednesday where I stream Breath of the Wild every Wednesday. And that's going to be ending very soon. It's sad. It makes me a little sad.
You had that originally planned for the Breath of the Wild 2 release.
Yeah, I was planning to.
Pick back up.
I was planning to like keep it going until Breath of the Wild 2 came out, and then They delayed the game, and I'm
You
like,
and Alnoma had that argument.
I'm
and
running
he was
out
like,
of things to
"Screw
do
you
in
and
this
your
game.
plans."
I have. Do you know how many Korok seeds I have to collect left? 5.
That's what Brie was telling me earlier. She said you had it
Yeah.
under 6.
Yeah. No, I'm so close. But yeah. Anyways, so that's coming to an end. But otherwise, you can still check out my channel for lots of good Zelda content, and other stuff will be soon. Just because I'm finishing that doesn't mean I'm going to stop making streams or videos. So thank you for hanging out. And Jesse, the game over guy himself, tell us about you. Tell us your things.
I'm kind of frustrated. I can't believe Alanuma would delay Breath of the Wild 2 just because you and him didn't get along at dinner. And he was like, I don't care if Daniel has Breath of the Wednesday going on. I don't care if he had it scheduled perfectly. I'm delaying it to mess up his schedule. Why would he do such a thing?
You told me we weren't going to talk about this.
I am Game Over Jesse. Everything I have going on is nothing at the moment, but if you would like to go back and look at old Zelda theories, please do, but not too old because they're horrible. And then you can go check out some older podcasts or some top 10 videos. Daniel and I recently did a top 20 most powerful Zelda characters, where if you have great entrepreneurship, you will be in the very good side of the video. But don't think it's a real video because you'll be...
It's a 100% real, true video with very serious rankings.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
With that in mind, thank you all for watching. Thank you for coming, listening, despite my voice quality being the way that it is. I really appreciate you all coming and watching, and I like catching up with everyone who's watching when we have our normal conversations on Daniel's live streams.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. We will catch you very soon with another podcast. And maybe all 4 of us will be here next time. Hopefully. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe a podcast where more than one of us is in the same room even. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Thank you for coming, everybody. Have yourselves a good night. I'm going to end the stream here. Bye-bye.